This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Thursday, the 5th of September, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. For the second time this year, gunmen disregarded the sanctity of a medical institution and murdered someone in the compound. The latest killing took place at 10:30 a.m. yesterday when two men approached the St. James Medical Complex worker Jamal Watts, and one of them shot at him. Reports say Watts, a daily paid worker from Bel Road in Belmont, was cutting grass on a field at the back of the complex when he was shot. The gunmen drove into the compound, parked, came out, and looked at Watts for some time before approaching him. One of the men approached and had a brief scuttle before he was shot. The two men ran off, jumped into the car, and escaped. Watts was rushed to the nearby accident and emergency department, where he died while being treated. Workers had to scamper for safety during the shooting. Watts' death is the second at the Northwest Regional Health Authority facility after a man was murdered at the Port of Spain General Hospital back in June. Police have labeled Watts' murder gang-related. However, they could not say if Watts himself was a gang member. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has won the defamation lawsuit brought against him by Urupuch East MP Dr. Wendell. Justice Carol Goodwin made a ruling and written judgment delivered yesterday. The case stems from an article in the Express newspaper on January 6, 2020, under the headline Rowley versus Waste, text exchanges. Editor-in-Chief Omati Leida was also listed as a defendant in the lawsuit. The newspaper had printed the following alleged exchange of text messages between Dr. Rowley and Fixing TNT leader Kurt Waite. Dr. Munilal sued Dr. Rowley, arguing the quotes were defamatory. The court agreed with two sentences, including those alleged to be defamatory, when read individually did not contain defamatory meanings, even when juxtaposed. The court also ruled the statements were part of a private and informal conversation rather than a formal public accusation and did not meet the benchmark for defamation. Both houses of parliament will resume sittings on September 9th, Monday, after the recent recess in July-August, according to the parliament website. The Senate sits at 10 a.m. on Monday, while the House will meet at 1:30 p.m. In the Senate, some 33 papers and reports will be laid, oral questions posed to be answered. Debate is expected to resume on the miscellaneous provisions Judicial and Legal Services Bill 2024. In the House, 68 papers and reports will be laid and 4 questions posed. The number of lab-confirmed deaths from dengue moves to 12 in Trinidad and Tobago. There are 1,053 lab-confirmed cases of dengue fever in this country. The information revealed by the Health Ministry in its latest epidemiology report of dengue cases within the country. As of September 4th, 2024, a total of 851 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners, occupiers directing them to clean their surroundings. Of these 43 property owners, occupiers have so far been ID'd for the consideration and institution of legal proceedings for non-compliance. In news of the region, St. Kitts Education Minister Dr. Geoffrey Hanley said the recently introduced HARE guidelines policy to curb discrimination in schools in the Trinidad Island Federation must be adhered to. Hanley made the disclosure as schools in St. Kitts Nevis reopened this week following the July-August holidays. He said teachers are enforcing the guidelines and parents have a role in ensuring the policy is maintained. And finally, a 14-year-old boy is to be charged with the murder of 4 people when they were killed and 9 others injured in a shooting in a Georgia high school yesterday, Wednesday. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation said those killed were 2 pupils and 2 teachers at the Appalachian High School in Winder, Barrow County. The boy's name is Colt Gray, a pupil who was arrested by 2 officers on the school's campus and was in custody. He will be charged as an adult. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We have major news at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
It is the 5th day of September. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Of course, on the show this morning, we just heard from Dr. Paul Richards. We'll hear from Richard Ragoobarsingh. We got Ruben and Shane in the mix. And of course, my name is Steve Kine. 24 degrees at Piarco International Airport, 25 at Crown Point in Tobago. And of course, on the highways and the byways, the sticky spot is Coover, the Sugar Gunners volume through Trin City and the interchange and Charlieville towards the interchange as well. All right. So good morning to you, Paul.
Morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
How art thou?
I am pretty good. Giving thanks. Got a good night's rest. So
yeah, I went to bed late, and then I couldn't get up this morning. Oof. It was a rough one this morning. Anyway, lots of stuff to do before I get out to the house. Lots of stuff. Anyway, let's say good morning. Going out to David Nelson, Captain Ron G, and Spotted Security, Anthony from Toronto, and of course, Val. Good morning to you. All on WhatsApp. You too can WhatsApp at 318-1021. All right. Of course, lots of messages on our message board as well. The usual culprits. I call you all culprits. But good morning to you. Subhash Mangal. It's been a while since we heard from you. Shu and Kerr as well. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right.
I was looking to see if Rena Jennings put up any good news you could share this morning.
Rena Buddha Jennings, where is your good news? You didn't see anything. Rena is probably still sleeping. Yeah, I was actually looking
for to share bad news. I was hoping that she was able to share some good news that we could share with the audience.
Yeah, to start off with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
But this may be good news to some people. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley won a defamation suit against Orpooch East MP Dr. Rudan Wendell. I'm sure some people will consider that good news.
Yeah. Some other good news, the Chinese embassy gives 22 laptops to the San Juan North Secondary School. So kudos to the Chinese embassy for that. That's some good news there.
You know, I didn't understand the lawsuit in the first place. From my understanding of the lawsuit, the Express published an article which published excerpts from an exchange, a text message exchange between the Prime Minister and Kirk Waite of Fixing TNT, in which the Prime Minister was telling Mr. Waite, get off my WhatsApp, stop bothering me. Mr. Waite was and saying, you don't talk about this thing, you don't talk about that thing, you don't talk about that. And the WhatsApp exchange made its way into an Express article. And Dr. Munira thought he was defamed in the exchange. But to me, if I and you texting Steve, and we bad talking somebody,
Richard as usual,
and we decide to say some things that may or may not be true, and the Express get a hand on that exchange, how is that defamatory if we didn't make it public and somebody invaded the privacy of that conversation,
third party,
and
correct.
Published it? How?
Yeah, I was wondering that.
We didn't go in the public and make these statements.
It's a private conversation.
How does that mean? I was confused. I'm the me no lawyer, so but Dr. Munidal is an attorney. You understand? So I was kind of confused as to why it was brought in the first place, but I guess everybody has the right of access to the courts. You know, and this is exactly what the judge ruled. Part of what the judge ruled, the statements were part of a private and informal conversation rather than a formal public accusation that did not meet the threshold of defamation, because, well, we're talking in a chat.
Yeah.
And there was no intention or no permission, by my understanding, by either party to make the conversation public. In which case, it would, to me, constitute, well, it defamed the character, depending on what was in it, of one or two of the parties who were mentioned, you know.
Somebody would have to screenshot and send it to somebody.
Well, it's one of the two parties, Steve.
Is it you or me?
Is either Dr. Rowley or Kirkways.
Yeah, somebody did
Somebody
it.
get it from.
Yeah.
You understand? And then the Express jump and print it.
Yeah.
But I guess they have a right to print. But if it comes to their attention and it's a hot topic, that they sell papers, eh?
Well, yeah. That's it. They have to
And
sell
it's a hot,
papers.
it's a hot
Ooh,
conversation. The conversation was quite intense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, making accusations about people. So, but it was a private conversation, which means if that case was won by Dr. Munina, it means everybody's private WhatsApp exchanges
In private.
and or television and or voice notes could now form the subject of defamation, slander, libel.
Mm-hmm.
Which don't make no sense. It's a private conversation. You and I talking on the phone and somebody recorded now is defamation too. So every bit of overland confusion to
Because if you call me and I have one of these recording apps on my phone, I could record it and I could send it to Richard
or to Express, Guardian, Newsday, whoever.
Yeah. Sunshine.
It's a private conversation that was not intended for publication. How could it be defamation? It's old talk and back on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in a public space and repeat those things, and that's why I have to jump in and stuff with your guests. So your guest was making inferences that could be construed as defamatory. When you say someone is crooked and underhanded, you know what that implies, right? Okay. So
I saw it yesterday, I saw Mr. Chin as he went into the lawyer's office next door.
Yeah, you can't be making those statements. Even if you say it happened to you, that is you. Don't make it on these airwaves. Don't. But I wasn't surprised by it, because I absented myself.
Yeah. That interview came from high up, so I had to do it.
I don't know what came from high up. It's just, I didn't think it added anything to the discourse, quite frankly. It added absolutely nothing to the discourse of the issue between Mr. Chin and Posenko and Mr. Chin and the Board of Inland Revenue. Okay?
Yeah.
Any good news or other good news we could share?
Most
parliament will resume on Monday.
Yeah, I heard any news from 10 o'clock.
The Senate resumes at 10 and the House resumes at 1:30.
And the budget is supposed, it's not been announced yet.
Our sources tell us September 30th. Monday, September 30th. Let's see if our sources are right.
Yeah. So which means money is being released.
And there are two political analysts who are quoted in it. No, there's money is being allocated, not released.
No, allocated.
Two political sources, Dr. Shane Mohammed and Dr. Bishnu Raghunath, both were suggesting that because Minister Stuart Young has been put to act for a second time in the absence of Dr. Rowley, this suggests that some sort of succession planning is taking place. Our sources tell us it's just that the Minister of Finance busy preparing the budget.
That's all. That's what I thought.
That is what our sources tell us. And the budget is an intense process. It'll be interesting to see, because it's now gone very dormant. The story about the Auditor General versus the Minister of Finance versus the Attorney General. Is somebody echoing? Is it? Why is that echo? Where is that echo coming from? Thank you, John Keith. I don't know.
I have no echo on my headphones.
I don't have any other portal open. Thanks for because I was hearing it too sometimes anyway. Yeah, will it stop now? Yeah.
Okay, let us know.
The issue of that Auditor General. Yes, he come back now. Let's hit on this volume. Imbroglio. and the misstatement of information that the Minister of Finance brought to the attention of the public, and that there was a discrepancy identified, and a further discrepancy identified by the Auditor General's Department, and the insistence or suggestion by the Minister of Finance that the Auditor General take what was sent, and the Auditor General's response that so some of it, I think it's about $3 billion, did not have supporting documents, and so she could not include it in the report. And of course, the subsequent, what happened there, Steve? Pre-action protocol letters. But you better turn on your mic on your feed, because the mic on power just went off. You have to turn on your mic on your computer for people to hear you, because power just went offline. I'm not hearing you. I won't hear you unless you open your microphone on your computer, or you input port power. Yes, when Steve sorts out his business. And how and if that is going to play into this budget presentation, because then one would expect, or one would hope, that when you're presenting a new budget, you present the actual figures of what the last budget was identified as, including the corrected information from Central Bank and the Revenue Division of the Ministry of Finance. I don't know what's going on with Steve, but he's not listening or not hearing me. Let me send him a message, because I have to keep talking for the people on YouTube. Steve. Right, he's brought it back on now.
Yeah.
Right. Are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you. Chrome just closed by itself.
Yeah.
Someone hacking us. That's right, Slick Money Grip. We're being hacked.
How about that? Yeah.
No,
It'll be interesting to see if a final figure is provided in this year's budget before, well, the budget 23-24, before moving on to 24-25 fiscal. Because of the discrepancies from the Revenue Division, Ministry of Finance, / Central Bank regarding the financial position of the country, given that imbroglio that arose. You understand? Because I don't think that should be just left like that. Because the Minister of Finance at the time brought to the Parliament the information about the discrepancy, as he should have, as was the responsible thing to do. Given the changeover from this system to that system, because they changed system of some system in there. But it is important that the public get a clear idea of what the final actual figure that has been substantiated is, because there was so much confusion regarding that for a couple of months. And the first, I think it's 3.4 billion, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, identified. Of that, I think there was still 700 million of that where documents had not been provided to substantiate, and I'm rounding off figures here. And I certainly didn't get a final reconciliation of that change in financial position. And there was so much toing and froing that everything gets lost in the maze. And then lawyers jump in, and we haven't heard a lot from the Auditor General. I know there had been appointed an acting Auditor General, but Ms. Jayanti Ramdas, I think, is still the substantive Auditor General. And when you're presenting a budget, one would imagine that we can get some accurate figures as to revenue and expenditure for the previous fiscal, given the controversy, before we go into presenting the new fiscal projections or proposals. So we will see how that goes. Never a dull moment. Sad news. Warning to Rena Budu Jennings that this is bad news. That there has been another shooting at a Northwest Regional Health Authority. This time, the St. James Medical Complex.
Yeah.
So while people going about the business, 10:30 yesterday morning, two men walk into the complex and sit down in a car. Eventually, one of them walks up to a worker named Jamal Watts. There was a brief scuffle, and the man shot Jamal Watts. They took him to the accident and emergency department for treatment, where he died while being treated. Now, police are labeling the murder as gang-related. The preliminary reports suggest that Watts' killing was linked to the shooting of Giovanni James of Belmont, who was 31 years old from St. Francois Valley Road, who was shot while fixing a car in Dark Island in Belmont last Thursday.
There's nothing to say. These guys just don't care. Somebody will get shot. An innocent bystander will get shot. It could be you, me, parents, a young child. It could be anybody, but they just do not care. And the police really needs
the shooting when children are present too. So that's true.
Children are being shot.
They don't really care if they see a child in somebody's arms or in close proximity to somebody.
It's a different kind of
monster. And they don't care.
Yeah. It's
sad state of affairs. So I guess another investigation has ensued. So don't think you're safe in the hospital anymore.
Don't think you're safe anymore.
But is it earlier this year or last year they drove into when the confusion from Belmont started, and they followed the people who were taken to hospital, and that very promising 18-year-old young man was killed because he decided to be a good Samaritan and take one of the victims to the hospital. And they followed them into Port of Spain General and continued the assault. And there was the death of the young man and one of the other people who were involved initially.
And then a couple of weeks ago, there was shots fired at Port of Spain General. I don't know. They need to do something.
Like?
I don't know. They're above my pay grade.
I don't know what they could do again.
I don't know what they could do.
I'm at a loss for words. When it comes to the crime situation. But as I indicated yesterday in that report, the UN report, which identified Jamaica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Tobago, and some other country, and the links to Central and South American gangs, particularly gangs from Venezuela, having permeated the countries identified. And we're seeing it here. We're seeing a different kind of typology with crime. And they're saying in some cases they are in competition with local gangs, and in some cases they are in collaboration with local gangs. So if the local gangs weren't bad enough, we have South American gangs to deal with now. And I said yesterday, when Venezuela's systems started to collapse, and we started to see droves of migrants arriving here from Venezuela. I said it 5 years ago. I said it 4 years ago. I said it 3 years ago. I put the authorities on notice that it is not only good people coming across here. Gang members who have a little more resources illegally, albeit illegally, were not staying to suffer with no toilet paper and pharmaceuticals in Venezuela. They were moving to other countries for better lives also. And when they come to the new country, they ain't going to work in fast food outlets. They're going to set up similar criminal enterprises wherever they land. And now, reaping the results of it.
Morning, Rich.
Good morning, guys, and good morning to our listeners and viewers, wherever you are.
You have any good news to share?
Good news in terms of what?
Well, people in the chat sometimes say we just come in with bad news all morning, and that's what we trade in. So I'm looking for any good news we can share.
Well, we are a current news program, so
Maybe that doesn't make any sense to some people, but
it is what it is.
you have some good news. Theater is coming this weekend.
Well, theaters on this weekend, yes, absolutely.
That's good news.
Yeah, that's fabulous news. Lotto Madness is on this weekend at Queen's Hall. And of course, today is Thursday, so the weekend begins tonight. People are the second half of midnight. That's also fantastic news. But Lotto Madness is on. If you need a de-stressor, theater is always a great go-to. And so Saturday at 8:30 and Sunday at 6:30. Of course, tickets are available at the Queen's Hall box office from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, and at the usual outlets. You know them: Electronics, Arima, Jubilee Railway, Tunapuna, and Tony's Florals, Var Park Shopping Plaza, Traveler Auto Services, and K Squared Fashions in West Mall, Eastgate, and Brentwood Mall in Chicago.
Thank you, Daniel Knights. Yes, Ashley Abrahams was officially named second runner-up at the 2024 Miss World pageant on Miss World's website day before yesterday.
I saw that coming up in my feed.
So congratulations to Ashley Abrams. She literally came third in Miss World.
Yeah, that's good news.
That's great news. She continues to do us proud. Thank you, Daniel. Nice. That is not good news. That is great news.
Yeah, that's great news.
See, so when you all get good news or remember good news, you can share it with us. We'll be happy to disseminate the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some sad news, I was reading the New York Times, and you know this Rebecca Cheptegei, I think, the long distance runner from Uganda, who completed the women's marathon at the Paris Olympics, she was severely burned in an attack by a man with whom she was in a relationship.
She died.
Yeah, she was burned 75% of her body. She died. Not too long, broke. Yeah, sad story.
Earlier this week.
Have you all seen that crazy case that's going on in France right now? I think it's Giselle Palicot. I think she gave permission for her name to come out. She was a rape victim, where her husband drugged her
and raped 71 times.
And invited 72 different men to come and rape her. And sexually abuse her while she was drugged. And it's
astounding.
It's a crazy case that's riveting France at the moment. And I think there are protests generally outside the courtroom every single day with people just finding the case so.
I see the movie now, I Married a Monster. I Married a Monster.
You know, it's a crazy situation. It's unbelievable that you have.
Did they identify a motive for the husband doing that horrible act? Or those horrible acts?
The case is ongoing, so I don't know if the motive is going to come out of it. But it's like a reality TV show.
I saw it yesterday. I saw it the before yesterday. I just I didn't read the whole thing because it was just a little too much.
Yeah, it's crazy. A crazy, crazy situation. I was also looking at what you were telling me, Paul. I'd seen it before, and I didn't watch the entire interview with the former Google. Was he head of data or head of programming?
Yeah, senior Google official.
Yeah, so it was a Stanford University, I think.
And he was talking about what's coming.
Yeah, what's coming. Well, Sam Altman and all of them have indicated that, on a big part of AI, and AI keeps making leaps and bounds if you follow AI. I don't know if people do. I certainly do. And follow up on what the latest developments are. Every week there are developments, basically, every single week.
Yeah, pretty much.
Strides being made. And what AI was capable of doing last year is certainly different to what it's capable of doing this year. Trust me on that.
But it's learning all the time. It's machine learning.
And it's getting much, much better. It's still in certain things it still isn't as well. Certain things that I play around with in terms of what it can do, it certainly hasn't reached.
I'll give you an example. I'm teaching 4 courses this year, right?
You're what?
I'm teaching 4 courses this year at university, right? And the students started the class one time. Sir, imagine adult students, they still call you sir, right? I guess it's a cultural thing in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah,
because no matter what age they are, it's 40-something-year-old students, 20-something-year-old students. They put it there and the ball say, can we record you because we have AI Learn, and AI Learn is listen to you and take the notes. So we'd have to take the notes and make the notes concise bullet points first and write some articles first. I said, well, you can use it to take the notes. You can use it to precede the notes, to make the notes more concise for your revision. But what you cannot do is use ChatGPT and AI Learn to write your assignments for you, because we will find out. Because we have AI too. They say, oh gosh. So I said, let me tell you all one time, because all of your assignments will come up with the same content.
Yep. And they're very right, because you could actually have AI. You could be sleeping, which would be nice to do a little late. You could be sleeping and you could have AI listen to this entire program, and at the end of it, it can give you what the main points were out of the program.
Yeah.
What the main points were said, it was that there was an interview held, who it was with, and what the main points of that interview was, and what
Ragoobarsingh and Steve Cannon audience. Long ago, I would have to listen to I would be on the show and make a paragraph or two about the show for the description for the YouTube uploads. That's a button to press now.
Yeah.
That's a button press now. The other sad news that happened globally, as you mentioned, the France situation, is that 14-year-old boy who decided that he was going to shoot people in a Georgia high school yesterday. His name is Colt Gray. He was eventually arrested. He will be charged as an adult. But after he went on his rampage, 4 people are left dead and 9 injured, including 2 students and 2 teachers. So on the first week the school reopens, parents have to get a call, shooting at your school, your child, come for your child. I mean,
but you know, that's one of these strange features of some states in the American legal system, where minors can be charged as adults.
Mm-hmm. Depending on the crime.
Yeah.
How heinous the crime is.
In many other countries of that follow Western democracies, including ourselves in the English-speaking Caribbean, we always treat minors differently. Whatever the crime is, minors are dealt with differently.
Yep. That was a really sad case coming across the news feeds yesterday. Ambrose is saying today there are 320,000 mass shootings in the U.S. I guess you said anything over 3 people dead or wounded is a mass shooting, Richard? Was that the...
Yeah, I think that's the definition.
The matrix.
The 3 and above, I think. I could quickly get it confirmed.
Astounding. The world is a strange world now, and even sending a child to school is a risk. You know? And you all keep cleaning up around your houses. The authorities are being quite vigilant, which is a good thing. There is now an additional lab-confirmed dengue death, I think, taking the deaths in TNT to 12 with 1,053 lab-confirmed cases. 851 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners and occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. And of those, 43 have been identified as maybe going to legal proceedings. So you all clean up around your house. Every other day or every day you should walk around and see if some little thing in your yard collecting water.
3 or more victims killed.
Right? We were talking earlier on, Ragoobarsingh, about the case that Dr. Raleigh wanted, that was brought by Dr. Rudal Munilal against Dr. Raleigh, a defamation suit that was dismissed yesterday by Justice Carol Gobin. And I was saying, based on what I know of the case surrounds a text message exchange between Dr. Raleigh and Kirkwaith, seemingly initiated by Kirkwaith. And Dr. Raleigh saying, get off my WhatsApp before I block you. And Dr. Raleigh saying, until you, Kirkwaith was challenging Dr. Raleigh, I guess, about the country, state, and leadership and the normal stuff. And Dr. Raleigh was saying, when you was quote unquote X and Y and Z.
Well, in the exchange,
I don't want to repeat it because we're not covered by the privilege here. You wasn't worried about X and Y and Z and A and B and C. That exchange was quite intense, but somehow made its way into the Express newspaper in an article called Raleigh versus Wade Taste Text Exchange. And because it made its way into the Express, Dr. Monidal brought a lawsuit against Dr. Raleigh for defamation. Now, in my estimation, and I mean, you are the lawyer, if it's a private conversation that you and I have, and I asked you this earlier, where we move along in somebody, and somebody leak it to the Express and they publish it, can you sue you or I when we didn't intend for it to be public as a private conversation that somebody put out there?
A difficult case to argue. I would say you're likely to fail because defamation really rests on it being published. So the issue would be whether you construe what you construe as being published. Of course, in this particular case, it was republished by the Express verbatim. I think that's what happened.
Yes.
And that's how it became published. But I think that's part of why it failed, according to the judge's reasoning, because I went through some of Justice Gubin's reasoning in why she found it not to be.
One said the statements were part of a private and informal conversation,
right? It didn't meet the
rather than
standard
a form of public accusation.
In terms of what was said and what was meant, because she also looked at the construction and the literal meaning, the literal meaning of what these sentences said in that ruling, and defamation is a difficult thing to win. Now, is it winnable? Of course it is, but it has to be clearly. Well, of course, it has to meet the publishing criteria. And you have to prove that you have suffered damage as a result of it.
But if it wasn't your intention, I'm talking about the parties here, for it to be a public conversation that may or may not contain what you consider defamatory to your character and reputation, and somebody gone in your phone, or somebody leak it,
or somebody shared it, yeah.
But it had to be one of the two parties unless they were hacked.
Yeah, so one of the parties must have shared it.
Yeah.
Some way. And so that's where it becomes that's why I said it becomes a very argumentative thing. But it's always a difficult case. Not all lawyers will do defamation. So it's always a difficult case, even though I think there's been a ramping up of defamation cases in the country over the last 5 years or a little bit more. It has been around.
Very litigious.
Yeah. We have become more litigation oriented than we used to be, which I don't necessarily see as a bad thing.
No, this is a bad thing at all. Shall we open the phones?
I think sometimes you need the court to weigh in on certain issues because they don't get resolved unless through the court system. But some things don't come up in the court system unless, some things wouldn't become part of the national discourse unless they were going through the court system. So, it's part of the evolution of the law and evolution of your maturing as a society, how you deal with issues and conflict. That's how I look at it. But we can open the lines at this point so you can get a little interactive with us this morning on this Thursday morning. It's Thursday. The weekend begins tonight, people, at the second half of midnight. I can't believe it's Thursday already. So the lines are now open. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, you know the number.
We would have called Mr. Wade's for an interview yesterday, but he politely declined.
866-525. Who's that?
We have a call. Good morning.
Who politely declined, sorry?
Good morning.
Dr. Paul.
Good morning.
And do something about the crime, but they refuse to. But you see, when it hit home in the bedroom, you're going to see they're looking to pass some laws, and it's not Dr. Rowley or Mr. Hines are talking about. Richard, you said young people will leave in the country. Your Trinidadians who live in the country, I would like them to look at the foreign news because they might jump from the frying pan straight into the fire because they're not easy. I can't see how American people could say, don't come to Trinidad because of A, B, and C. And they have A to Z over there. Have a good day.
They're a country that's immeasurably bigger and 300 million plus people. So, and there are many cities and states that are very considered very, very safe. Are there
Yeah.
some cities that are more violent than others? Of course. But, you know,
I never understand the comparisons.
yeah, it's
It's
different
an
comparison. Per capita, we are a small space with a lot of incidents.
apples and oranges.
Yeah.
So
Good
that's what
morning.
we talk.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Orlando here.
Hey,
Hope
buddy.
you guys are doing well. We are having some rain up here these days.
We have no rain here.
Beautiful, wonderful. I just came back from Trinidad, and I have a little disappointment that I needed to share, and I'm hoping that something could happen about it.
Could you just speak up just a bit, please? We're barely hearing you.
Okay, no problem. Let me raise my tenor a bit. Yeah,
Thank you.
I just came back from Trinidad, came down there for about a week and a half to attend to some personal matters. While there, I heard of the Independence Day parade. I haven't seen Independence in maybe 35 years. Okay, when I went away to do my studies many years ago, I decided to go. Now, I loved going to it as a little boy, seeing the dogs march and whatever. I was thoroughly disappointed. One, it was broken up into two segments. The grandstand, which was covered, and all the executives and the ministers and whoever was there.
Mhm.
And there were these stands where people were just sitting in the sun. No vending was allowed. You couldn't get water. There was no audio. You couldn't hear what was going on. So you just saw the Prime Minister and different dignitaries appearing, but there's no announcement. There's no historical perspective, nothing. I was thoroughly disappointed that, we couldn't have a speaker system over there so that we can hear. We couldn't buy a bottle of water. So I am there from 6:30 in the morning. That's about 9 plus or minus a minute or two. And I couldn't get a bottle of water. They said no vending is allowed in the stands. So you're sitting there, I'm not even sure if there were restrooms. I didn't check the restrooms. But there's nothing. People just sitting there, we have no idea what's going on. Yes, you're seeing the visual is there, but you have no idea, okay, what is the president? Is this the president who arrived? You have to guess at what's going on. Very, very disappointed. And I took a friend of mine, who's an American friend of mine, we began on doing business together. He said, they compared us to 4th of July, and he said, it's ridiculous. He left. I went back to Hilton. He left. He said, I can't just sit in the sun and I don't know what's going on. And I could appreciate that. We really need to do better. Something as important as our independence. You have hundreds of people packed into a stand, which is fine. I understand that. It's open seating. But we don't know what's going on. So I just wish that, I'm not sure what you guys can do it, if you can share it, and share that national security. I'm not sure who it is. But we can do better. We can definitely do better. And a lot of people in the stands were complaining that this is the type of treatment they met out to the normal citizens. That's all I have to say. But I enjoyed myself in Trinidad. Trinidad as always is beautiful, and I love my country, and I'll be back in November. Hopefully Richard will have another play there. Take care, guys.
America dance.
All right.
All right, Orlando.
I mean that speaks to the, I suppose, the organization of the event.
Yeah.
And the gaps in terms of how it's planned, I guess. I mean, I've never actually gone to that parade.
Yeah, I've never gone.
I've never gone.
Well, I think the issue of no vending,
Good morning.
Hold on, caller.
no vending in that area is to avoid the issue of bottles or whatever, because you have the head of state driving around in a covered and uncovered vehicle. So that may be a security issue, but I fully understand the caller's point about putting some speakers up there so that the audience, particularly the children, get a sense of what the commentary is.
Yeah.
And you could sell plastic bottles of water, because it's hot. Yes, Good morning, caller. Thanks for holding.
Good morning, guys. Miss Sampson, you're so correct. I always wonder when I hear people saying, oh God, I'm afraid to come to Trinidad. Listen, you see that Labor Day? I have been going on vacation to the United States since 1979. And I never stayed for Labor Day. Never. Because I said, if our
Carnival, they say, is the greatest show on earth. I don't really want to see because Labor Day is just a set of people. And it gets worse now because bikini and beads and all kind of vulgarity. So that Labor Day don't attract me at all. Right? So, and you know, a caller who calls from Virginia, he was on, I think it was the Charles program, and he was talking about, and they don't have no mass shooting in Virginia. It doesn't matter whether it's Virginia or Ohio, where America has a gun problem, which Trinidad seems like they want to adopt, and they need to deal with that. If you know, it does upset me when I hear every time America have a mass shooting, they brings it up. Oh, and we have to have gun control. Gun control what? Y'all in some states, as my son just tell me, some states have the right to bear arms, and they are bearing arms. So y'all will continue to have mass shooting, right? So don't talk about Virginia, don't have it. America has a gun problem, and any Tom, Dick, and Harry Lal feel to take up a gun and shoot up the place, they just do it. So don't come to deny nothing. And I want to say to Tim Gopi Singh, you need to hang your head in shame because your boss on a radio station years ago, I built 100. Well, every time I hear the figure going up, he say 100, I hear 106. No school should be saying, I want my school now. I want a new school. Because if you built 100 schools, imagine I saw on the news, some school down in Central South is 100 years old. I ball out like an El Roberts. What? I said no. And Tim Gopi Singh didn't see it fit. That school should have been the first on the list. But no, your boss, you built 100 school? Really? Tim Gopi Singh? No. Check that. Because all these schools balling for the new school and they want repairs, you should have dealt with it and you didn't. Shame on you, Tim Gopi Singh. Have a blessed day.
Richard, do you have papers?
Actually, I do.
All right. Before you hit papers, let me just let folks know if you're coming into Port of Spain and you are by the abattoir lights, a car is westbound, a car is on its side, and apparently it's on fire. So expect delays. Again, by abattoir lights, by the market, westbound, coming in Port of Spain, a car is on its side. Go ahead, Rich.
I see the CDB giving us some level of criticism in terms of the amount of money that I identified for projects and blaming administration changes for the lack of progress on projects in the Trinidad and Tobago landscape. It was a conference held at the Central Bank Auditorium. It makes some interesting reading and is not very surprising, quite frankly. Anyway, Daily Express this morning, and of course today is September 5th, just in case you didn't know and you are in a blur and you don't know what date it is, I'm here to tell you what date it is. It's Thursday, September 5th, 2024. The main headline in the Daily Express in Trinidad and Tobago this morning, a worker ambushed and shot dead at St. James Complex. Murder at hospital is the headline. Munilal loses defamation case against Prime Minister and Express. And the main picture is that of controlling traffic. I said police officers direct traffic at the entrance of the St. James Medical Complex yesterday following the murder of worker Jamal Watts on the compound. So that's the main news story on the front page of the Express. On the back page, dying too young, pastor mourns for teenager Aliyah at funeral. And there is a picture of that funeral. So friends and relatives paid their final respects to Aliyah Santos following the funeral service yesterday at Allen's Funeral Home in Arima. And then, so it's a picture, of people in grief, basically. The sports pages, which is now inside the Express. So it's kind of the main headline, dress rehearsal. Derek King sees Honduras as likely World Cup qualifying opponents. That's the main sports story inside the Express. Newsday for today. Front page. Nurses Union on murder at St. James facility. NatSec failing hospitals. And they're talking about national security is failing hospitals. UN regional government's efforts to fight crime backfiring. Farmers can survive climate change. That's on the magazine inside the newspapers this morning. And there is a picture of a SWAT vehicle at the St. James Medical Complex concerning the murder that took place there. So that's the main picture. On the back page of the Newsday today, sports fanatic Joey Richardson remembered flag party for Flagman. And TNT's Akeem begins Paralympic quest today. Moving on to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian and the final of our 3 dailies this morning. The headline, hospital murder. NWRHA beefs up security after St. James medical worker killed on the job. St. George's teachers give ministry an ultimatum and no desks or chairs for Mayaro secondary students. PM Rowley wins lawsuit against Munilal. All of that is on the front page of the Guardian this morning. And on the back page, Soca Warriors must be ready. So says David. I don't know who David is. Thanks for clearing that up. But that's it basically for our 3 dailies this morning. So now you're a little bit informed about what the main stories are according to our daily newspapers in the lovely Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on this Thursday morning. Over to you for the poll results.
Again, that accident is by the market. I just want to let you know the car is ablaze. The vehicle is ablaze. So, and it's creating quite a pileup. Again, by Abattoir Road, by the market, there, the traffic lights, the car is flipped and is certainly on fire. All right, let's see if we get the results of our morning poll from yesterday. We asked you, do you believe there is room for a reconciliation between the UNC and NTA? 56% said no.
So we are on to our poll this morning. I'm not too sure what you're doing, Paul.
Well, the suggested question is, do you agree with Justice Carl Gobin's ruling dismissing Dr. Munila's defamation case against Dr. Rowley?
You think the members of the public are not informed about these?
The other question is one I had from yesterday: should the Ministry of Education be allocating more funds in the national budget to facilitate school repairs?
Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Education?
Whichever one.
I prefer that one. I don't know that people are that familiar with the case in terms of
so I always have options for you.
The details. Should the Ministry of Finance be allocating more funds in the national budget to facilitate more comprehensive school repairs? That's our poll this morning.
See how fast that was?
Yep, it was pretty fast. Ministry of Finance, you're on the line this morning, Ministry of Finance. Mm-hmm. Should the Ministry of Finance be allocating more funds in the national budget to facilitate more comprehensive school repairs? That's our poll this morning.
Good morning, caller.
222 talk to 8255 Americans 866-525-1099. People who are on streaming platforms, you can send your votes via the messaging portals there. And if you're watching us on M&E TV and listening to us on smart devices, you can also WhatsApp us at 318-1021. Now
morning,
we
caller.
can take votes. Now.
I said, are we getting property tax? So there is
yes or no?
I didn't hear the question.
Should the Ministry of Finance be allocating more funds in the national budget to the Ministry of Education to facilitate more comprehensive school repairs?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, got some votes coming in here already. Boy Badisi says yes. Anyhow, Miguel, yes. Richard Pete Knights, yes. Ian Lee, no. Slick Money Grip, yes. Wayne Lala, yes. Beauty Culture, yes. Let's see. Karen from Goodwood, Tobago. Good morning, Karen. Yes. Captain Ron, yes. Anthony in Toronto, yes. Val says yes. Roger Seawing says no. Good morning, Jaron. Good morning, Vincent in the UK. Oliver Man Warren, good morning. Jaron, David Nelson says yes. What says you, caller?
Good morning, gentlemen. Kansas City, yes.
Thank you, buddy. Have a good one. All right. Alistair Hart, yes. Cheryl Henry, yes. David Wares, no. Pearl Cordis, yes. Anthony Tinto in Canada, yes. Sydney Ramjit Singh, yes. DJ Ray out in Delaware says yes. Andre, I don't know which part though. All right. Let's get those votes going. We've got Jaron saying yes. We have somebody else saying no. Yeah, Jaron Joseph said yes. Let's see. All right. Should the Ministry of Finance be allocated more funds in the national budget to the Ministry of Education to facilitate more comprehensive school repairs? That's our poll. What's up? 318-1021. Call us locally, 222-8255. Toll free, North Americans, 866-525-1099. Facebook, YouTube as well. All right? And
You know what
yes
I don't understand
or
about that,
no.
Paul? Say that again, please, Steve. Sorry.
Hmm?
Was that a vote you were giving?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. What I don't understand about that is in terms of the scheme of government always have several priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the education of children and the facilities and comfort of where our children are learning fall in national priorities? So if it's number one, then the Ministry of Finance has a responsibility, together with proper accounting from the Ministry of Education, as to how much funds are required to deal with the issue of schools across Trinidad and Tobago catering to a population of 1.4 million people in terms of the students coming out of that pool. Okay? So if it's at number one, then you make those funds available. If you understand the value of having all of these children who are the future of the country, that started off with Eric Williams saying the future of our country lies in their book bags, I'm paraphrasing, then it means there is a responsibility on the state to ensure that schools are in proper conditions and of a sufficient standard in 2024 to facilitate the proper learning required from all of our students across all social districts, all districts, regions, etc. So if that's a priority that you label at number 1 or 2 or 3, then you will corresponding. But if you have it down as number 12 or number 15, then you have a problem. So how much do we actually value that? That we have to go through this cross administrations and have this conversation every goddamn year about the issue of repairs to schools. So decide, is it a priority or is it not?
Got some votes. DL says no. CJ New York, yes. Julie Espetiste, yes. Andre is asking if the highway between Mauska and Maloney Lights is finished paving. Don't know. Somebody can tell us. Let's get some more votes here. I have Miss Bon Air West. Says yes to the poll. I have Vincent in Birmingham, UK, saying yes. All right. Ambrose Blah.
It's like that CDB report that I was just referenced in the newspapers about 400 million plus being available to Trinidad and Tobago for projects. And I think I don't want to quote wrong, but like 10 million really being implemented because administrations change and projects stop and go on the side because they
Wastage.
It's silly and stupid.
Wastage.
That's what it is. It's silliness at the political level on both parties.
Ray Garcia says yes. Yeah.
It's like the IDB project in Arima. Arima's supposed to be the pioneer of smart cities in Trinidad and Tobago. We are the project template that is to be rolled out across the country. IDB, are you all considering taking back all the money at this point? Because I don't even know what is going on. I want to speak to somebody in the IDB. Because between the IDB and whoever else is dealing with that project, your PR is terrible in terms of having this rollout. Yes, I'm speaking to you, IDB. Your PR in terms of the money being spent on that Arima Smart City project is terrible.
All right. Well, we need to get into news, so let's do it right now. Evie is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Here are your news headlines to 7 o'clock. An employee of the St. James Medical Complex is shot and killed near his workplace on Wednesday. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley wins defamation lawsuit brought against him by Oropouche East MP Dr. Rudal Munilal. Both houses of parliament to resume with sittings on September 9th. Lab confirmed deaths from dengue locally moves to 12. And in the U.S., a boy 14 arrested after 4 killed in U.S. school shooting. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sindelbab. Good morning. For the second time this year, gunmen disregarded the sanctity of a medical institution and murdered someone on the compound. The latest killing took place at 10:30 a.m. yesterday, when 2 men approached St. James Medical Complex worker Jamal Watts, and one of them shot him. Reports say that Watts, a daily paid worker from Bel Air Road, Belmont, was cutting grass on a field at the back of the complex where the incident occurred. The men reportedly drove into the compound, parked, and came out and looked at Watts for some time before approaching him. One of the men and Watts had a brief scuffle before he was shot. The 2 men then ran off, jumped into the car, and escaped. Watts was rushed to the nearby accident and emergency department, where he died while being treated. Workers said that they had to scamper for safety during the shooting, which forced the evacuation of some staff and patients. Watts' death is the second at the Northwest Regional Health Authority facility. In June, a man was murdered at the Port of Spain General Hospital after he'd been taken there for treatment following a shooting in Belmont in which 3 of his friends were killed. Police had labeled Watts' murder as gang-related. However, they could not say if Watts himself was a member of any gang. Police said preliminary reports suggest that Watts' killing was linked to the shooting death of Giovanni Vanni James, 21, of Upper St. Barb's Road, Belmont. James and a 31-year-old St. Francois Valley Road man was shot while fixing a car at Belmont last Thursday. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has won a defamation lawsuit brought against him by Oropouche East MP Dr. Rudal Munilal. Justice Carol Gobin made the ruling in a written judgment delivered yesterday. The case stems from an article in the Express newspaper on January 6, 2020, under the headline Rowley versus Waith, Tears Tax Exchange. Express editor-in-chief Omati Lida was also listed as a defendant. The newspaper had printed an alleged exchange of text messages between Dr. Rowley and Fixin' TNT leader Kirk Waith. Dr. Munilal sued Dr. Rowley, arguing the quotes were defamatory. Dr. Rowley and his attorneys, however, argued that the statements were not made specifically about Dr. Munilal. They also said the statements could not reasonably be understood as defamatory, especially when read individually or even as a combined text. The court agreed, saying the 2 sentences, when read individually, could not contain defamatory meanings, and even when juxtaposed, could not harm Munilal's reputation. The court also ruled that the statements were part of a private and informal conversation rather than a formal public accusation and did not meet the threshold for defamation. Both houses of parliament will resume with sittings on September 9th after the recent break for the July-August vacations, according to the parliament website as viewed on September 4th. The Senate sits at 10 a.m. while the House of Representatives meets at 1:30 p.m. In the Senate, some 33 papers or reports will be laid and 4 oral questions posed for answer. Debate is expected to resume on the Miscellaneous Provisions Judicial and Legal Service Bill 2024. In the House, 68 papers or reports will be laid and 4 questions posed. The House last sat on July 3rd and the Senate on July 5th. The number of laboratory-confirmed deaths from dengue fever moves to 12 in Trinidad and Tobago, and there are now 1,053 laboratory-confirmed cases of dengue fever. This information was revealed by the Ministry of Health in its latest epidemiological update on dengue cases within the country. As at September 4th, 2024, a total of 851 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners and occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. Of this, 43 property owners or occupiers have, thus far, been identified for the consideration or institution of legal proceedings for non-compliance. Protest on Wednesday by parents of students attending Mayaro Secondary School over a lack of furniture in classrooms and infrastructure problems at the institution. They complained about a lack of chairs and desks. Responding to the development, the Education Minister, Dr. Leanne Gatsby-Dolly, is reported as saying that the Ministry of Education has been made aware of the protest by Mayaro Secondary School parents. She said while the ministry recognizes the need to upgrade and replace school furniture, the immediate need for 190 chairs and tables at a school that was in full operation 2 months ago requires deeper investigation. Speaking with the media, one parent explained the situation is in urgent need of attention. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital till 7 o'clock. A boy accused of killing 4 people at his high school in Georgia in the U.S. was interviewed last year by police about anonymous online threats, according to the FBI. 14-year-old Colt Gray denied to police in May 2023 he was behind internet posts that contained images of guns, warning of a school shooting. The suspect opened fire on Wednesday at Appalachia High School in the city of Winder, killing 2 teachers and 2 14-year-old pupils, according to investigators. 8 students and 1 teacher were injured. He was arrested on campus and will be prosecuted as an adult. Police have identified the victims as teachers Christine Ermery and Richard Aspinwall, and 14-year-old students Mason Shomahorn and Christian Angulo. In a news conference, Georgia Bureau of Investigation Director Chris Hosey said the gun used was an AR platform-style weapon. Well, finally, here is weather news for the period today until midnight. Trinidad and Tobago and the Windwards, predominantly hot and sunny conditions are expected, despite a few brief showers at times. There's also a low chance of isolated afternoon heavy showers or thunderstorms favoring western coastal areas of Trinidad. Tonight will be fair. Gusty winds and street or flash flooding may occur near heavy showers and thunderstorms. Expect a very warm day today, 34-degree temperature high at Piarco International Airport and 33 degrees at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, the temperature at Piarco International Airport is 25 degrees Celsius. It is 27 degrees Celsius at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines at 7 o'clock, an employee of the St. James Medical Complex is shot and killed near his workplace on Wednesday. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley wins defamation lawsuit brought against him by Oropouche East MP Dr. Rudal Munilal. Both houses of parliament to resume with sittings on September 9th. Lab-confirmed deaths from dengue locally moves to 12. And in the U.S., 14-year-old boy arrested after 4 killed in U.S. school shooting. I'm Avril Sidhill-Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right, thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. You can join her again come 7 o'clock this morning for our news, not 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock this morning for our news brief, and then at major news again at noon today alongside Sir Charles. Quickly again, traffic-wise, I'll tell you how far this traffic is going up now. A car is on fire by the traffic lights by Abattoir Road. Westbound going up Lady Young Road is heavy, so you're going to pick up your traffic. Yeah, your traffic is pretty heavy. That is causing quite a traffic from QREP You're getting traffic from Maloney to UE and Cure up to Port of Spain. San Fernando, your traffic is going to start from Hoover towards the interchange. All right. Yeah, Eastern Main Road is quite heavy as well. All right, let's see if we have any more votes here. Let's see. We did okay. Ray Garcia says yes. Oh, okay. CJ New York says yes. Julia Espiti says yes. Oh, I did those two already. Okay. Lincoln says no. Cohen Duke, yes. Cynthia Iran, no. And okay. And someone is saying they only hearing Paul alone. Okay, I don't know. I do not know. I'm good here.
All right, so our poll this morning, should the Ministry of Finance be allocating more funds in the national budget to facilitate more comprehensive school repairs? That's our poll this morning.
HDB says yes.
Right, so polling is now closed for this segment. So there are 37 people voting on the poll this morning. 30 of you said yes. You do think that the Ministry of Finance should be allocating more funds in the national budget to facilitate more comprehensive school repairs. 7 of you said, nay, you don't think so, they should not do it. But 30 of you said yes, 7 said no. So the yeas have it this morning in our poll. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, through our programming, and we'll give you the final results tomorrow morning, which will be Friday, the day that's celebrated on this morning program like no other, because it heralds the weekend. And of course, you know, no other morning program on the planet celebrates the weekend like the Power Breakfast Show. So that's when you will get the final results for this poll, which will be tomorrow morning, for all of you who are voting during the period today. Right, so thank you, Mr. Ali, for sending us the information concerning IDB. So I passed it on to the bosses, so to speak. So they will, I suppose, eventually liaise with them to see if we can get an interview with IDB concerning what the hell is going on with the Arima Smart City project. Because inquiring minds want to know. Meaning me, I want to know. What's going on? Of course, just reminding you on absolutely fantastic news, theater is on this weekend, and I always say support theater anytime theater is on. I would have told you about Blakey's, to Lord Blakey last Sunday. But theater's on this weekend, Lotto Madness, the final 2 shows in Port of Spain. So if you're in the Port of Spain or northeastern area or northwestern area, this is your last opportunity to see Lotto Madness in North Trinidad. It's on at Queen's Hall this weekend, Saturday at 8:30 and Sunday at 6:30. And of course, tickets are on sale at the Queen's Hall box office from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. And tickets are also available at the usual outlets, which would be, of course, Electronics in Arimas, K-Squared Fashions in West Mall, East Gates, and Brentwood Mall in Chagonas. And, of course, Jubilee Rawi in Tunapuna, and Tony's Florals in Val Park in the remodeling that's ongoing at Val Park Shopping Plaza. And Tony's Florals, you can get your tickets there. And of course, also at Champlain Auto Services in, guess where? Champlain. So that's where you can get your tickets for the play. You can also get them online. You can check RSRR Productions theater page on social media, where you can purchase your tickets online.
Let me also share some great news. We had an interview with Hillary Benjamin. Is it 2 weeks ago? Just under 2 weeks ago. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, due to the kindness of our audience members, she got enough funds to have 10 sessions of therapy.
Oh,
Right,
wonderful.
right.
And
Yeah, that's
CNC Free saw the interview and did a story on her, and that's airing on Monday, which should also give her more support. So thank
that's
you,
great.
audience members, for your wonderful generosity. And
Mhm.
Hillary thanks you from the bottom of her heart.
Yeah.
So that's good news.
Yeah. If you remember, listeners,
Rita?
she had a stroke and it cost a bit for the therapy, cost for transportation. So thank you so much. Trini, you always pull through.
Right. I want to remind you also, those of you who have interest in family law and children's issues, of the International Society of Family Law 4th Caribbean Regional Conference is taking place at the Hilton between November 13th and 15th. It's focused on the conventions of the right of the child at 35 years. It'll be focusing on child abuse, neglect, trauma, permanency, planning of child welfare, intersection of care levers and penal systems, cybercrime and children, children's rights to education, play, human rights of child migrants, refugees, children with disabilities, and child returnees from high conflict areas, trafficking in adolescents, forensic pathology investigations, and a whole lot more. So if you're interested in that, and I know many of you are interested in children's issues, the International Society of Family Law 4th Caribbean Regional Conference is taking place at the Hilton Trinidad from November 13th to 15th. It's under the auspices of my colleague, Senator Hazel Thompson IE. And you can call 223-8159 for more information. That's 223-8159.
I just wanted to touch a little bit on that CDB article. I just want to read a couple paragraphs in it just to put it out there because I think it's indicative of.
Could you send it for me, please, when you get a chance?
But I could snap it and send it, yes. So acting vice president of operations at the Caribbean Development Bank, Therese Turner Jones, believes Trinidad and Tobago and the CDB's story is not impressive, given that many specific projects were not completed despite the benefits they would bring.
What is the CDB again?
Caribbean Development Bank.
Okay, thanks.
Turner Jones yesterday attributed this large gap between identified projects and completed ones to administrative changes. In the last country strategy, we identified over $430 million in projects and less than $10 million actualized. So that is a concern because in the strategy, we identified doing more on water and sanitation. There is a lot of room there, and we are doing some technical assistance for your master plan for water resources in the country, but it hasn't been outstanding in terms of what we have been able to do, she said. She was speaking during a panel discussion hosted by the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, Building TNT's Economic and Financial Resilience, the Role of Multinational Financial Institutions at the Central Bank Auditorium in Port Spain. Joined from Chief Economist and General Manager of the Department of Research of the Inter-American Development Bank, Dr. Eric Parado, Herrera's comment on the impact of democracy, she said there was a need for deeper dialogue with citizens as opposed to only policymakers. Turner Jones said Parado Herrera mentioned something just in passing about democracy and the way we interact with members of our government who are members of our institutions. That dialogue tends to focus on a relationship at a point in time. And I think what we need to be doing is going deeper where the dialogue is extended to civil society and the beneficiaries, so it is not just seen as being associated with a particular administration. She continued, Trinidad's story, I think for me, is a good story for maybe how not to do a country strategy, meaning it's typically not aligned with an election cycle. And what happens is if it doesn't get done in an administration, then it's abandoned. And we have seen this across the region. Turner Jones said administrations dump projects which are considered to be fine because they may not align with their mandate or they do not see the benefits of it during their administration. But I don't want to go through the whole article, but it's in the Express today on page 3. But that's just some of it, some of the commentary coming out of that conference. And there's my food for me to snap it. Oh, it's in my pocket.
Well, there are countries, and I know I did a research paper on Panama, and there are several European countries that have passed similar legislation that mandates that there are particular projects that are approved by the parliament, although it's a particular government initiative, and the ruling administration, the sitting administration, brings it to parliament and gets it passed, in some cases by a simple majority because they're the ones who are in power. And that law mandates that even if the government changes while the project is ongoing, that project has to be completed by law. And that those laws were passed simply because of that situation of which I identified.
That same kind of situation.
Yeah. Because it's not unique that this Japanese happens across the region and probably the world. But they realized it was an issue and causing wastage, and they passed a law indicating that these projects must continue to completion. And they actually identified the timeline must continue. So even if they have audits of the contracts and stuff, because that's sometimes a part of the issue that the contracts that were awarded were improperly awarded, etc. But once it was passed by Parliament as an ongoing state project, not necessarily a government project, they must continue, even though you have audits of some of the systems.
But you know that, but you know, state projects and government projects can be in a Trinidad and Tobago context aligned to be the same thing. They're almost synonyms in terms of how people, the lens through which people see it, which is why the problem exists.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, it causes a lot of wastage.
It does. So if and not only that, there are real and tangible benefits that can accrue to the citizenry that does not happen. And because what is happening and etc. in terms of some of these projects being realized.
And what has happened in Parliament, in particular, when it's taken to Parliament, it's properly ventilated, even though it will pass because they have a majority. A lot of the new ancillary project actually would have been changed by the parliamentary process of debate. You understand? Making it more palatable to both sides of the aisle. And so more likely to have consensus that this is a state project, although brought by the sitting government, and must continue to completion. Cheryl is saying,
if that's what needs to happen, then that's what needs to happen.
I've mentioned it several times before. Frank C. Prasad, Justice to call Tata and complain that talk show host bringing the judiciary into repute by discussing the judgments. Cheryl, I think people can agree and disagree on judgments, that you have to bring the judiciary into this way because you disagree with a judgment. But it's not a totalitarian state.
No.
And I am one who, I mean, I am not somebody who countenances that the judiciary is beyond reproach, you know. Far from it. Human beings enter the judiciary like everywhere else, every other institution. Oh, you forgot the late justice. What's his name? All right. He's gone to the great beyond now. He was part of the judiciary. The phone lines are open.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to cut it out. We have a lot of calls coming through. So good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Richard and Dr. Paul. Good morning to you all.
Where you cook this morning?
Pardon?
Where you cook this morning?
What I cooked? I did some cassava in.
No, she's there. You did some cassava in what?
Garlic butter.
I did that on Sunday last. It was lovely.
That is a heavy meal, you know.
Well, that's the only carbohydrate you need in the meal.
Yeah, but I like sweet potato with it, you know, but my daughter doesn't like sweet potato. So she'll just eat that alone with the fish.
She eat whatever what you give her.
What you were just reading there, I wish we could have that legislation in Trinidad. Oh my gosh, we have so many projects if one government started it and the next one coming forward, they're not completing it. Wastage and vandalism. So many. I mean, I know in Champlain there was a housing area what HEC was doing. And as soon as the government lost, that was in Patrick Manning time. That was the end of that project, you know.
Not only that, identify more. Don't identify one.
No, but I know of one. That was right in the back of my mother's house.
Identify one. Identify more. It happens across the board.
Plenty more. Look, Edinburgh 500. Those towers. What happened to those towers, by the way?
I don't like the blight.
Like something wrong. If it's the color of it, oh my gosh. And schools, you know. So what it is state is not a government money, you know. Whoever party come into power if one lost, continue the project and stop wasting money. You know, so that's where we have all these problems, you know, because of politics. So what happened to the school? What the school had to do with politics? What the houses had to do with politics? Whatever building, what politics had to do with that? Is our money. You need to do. We need legislation for it. Please, see you can do something now.
From Monday.
All right.
You know, the powers you all think I have, I don't.
Good morning.
Good morning. There is 2 buildings in Penal, I think was supposed to be schools. All that missing is plumbing, electrical, and paint. You want to tell me nobody can get that up and running? Dr. Paul, is it possible you all could put in the letter act so we can do something with the flooding? I saw...
When you say you all put in letter act, what do you mean?
Well, start to charge people for littering.
Can you send me the letter of appointment as Attorney General, and I'll help you out.
No, listen to this. I saw a video with a guy who lives in Australia, and under the manhole have a basket. So when you move the manhole, you just pick up the basket and empty the basket and put it back in. Well, at least try and adopt that. Put a basket under each manhole. We wouldn't have the flood.
When you get a chance, just send me the letter of appointment that I got appointed Attorney General, and I'll help you out. I missed it in my mail, so send it for me, please.
Employ me now. I have some good ideas. You know, you see that mosquito?
You're talking to the wrong person, ma'am.
Listen, Dr. Paul, you see that mosquito creek? I sent in my chicken scratch, my nice little drawing of a ramp from beginning of the water to after the bridge, where you could walk under the bridge to fix any pillars or whatnot. Nobody doesn't listen to me. They're still spending money down there. They must be fine. Well, I did not go to what school?
Engineering school.
I mean, common sense. Build a ramp so the water could go.
I should take your drawing and construct it.
I was in our Wari office the other day, and I showed the gentleman that Ms. Sampson and they didn't take that into consideration. The last mayor, they just threw it out. But all you have to do is to build a ramp because you can't stop the water. They're still spending money down there. Listen to the elderly people in the area who born and go down south. You understand? Why are you moving the mangrove? Let the water go. Let the sea go and visit the mangrove and go back. Just build a ramp. End of story. Lord have mercy.
Thank you.
I don't know now.
All right, Ms. Thompson. Thank you. Good morning.
Hey, morning, Paul Richard, Steve Khan.
Morning.
Mr. Patrick.
Wendell, Richard Ragoobarsingh. Talking about the crime. I remember when Ambassador Pandey was in power, he talked about 2 major issues. One was the Piaco airport scandal. He said the milking a cow up in the back of there. With the corruption that was going on in the airport there. And he talked about the crime in the country, and he threw his hand up in the air and he said, should we put a policeman by every corner or by every house door? And he said, God help us. And we see it happening today the same way. How could we get a whole lot of crime? The fellas them driving the hospital compound, they sit down in the car, watch the man up, come out the car and confront the man and shoot the man. So here what's going on now. Every government compound now to put a police booth. Anybody going in and search, they can't touch that. That's what we issue. You understand? That's what we issue is that every government...
Mr. Patrick, I could answer, you know, where we need to reach is that after those men have left that compound, they are caught and detained and held accountable. That's what needs to happen. You have all kind of snipers and bacchanal that happen in the United States. Do they just throw their hands up in the air and say, oh, we don't know if we could find them? Are the US so big? Somehow they track down those people and get them. That's called accountability. It's not throwing your hands up in the air. It's accountability that if you do the act, you will be caught. That's what makes an impact on crime.
This morning, what else you going to do?
That's what makes the impact.
What else you going to do? That's what I said.
Knowing that you'll be caught. But what you have now is a psychological sense from the criminal element that they don't think they will be caught. That you can come out of St. James Medical, drive down either St. James, or either go up that side street, I don't know what the name is, or head west, and nobody not following you, nobody not trying to track you down, all the little side streets in St. James that have all kind of humps that you have to slow down in. Nobody can follow you. You could be slowing down and driving very casually because you know nobody is following you.
Ragoobarsingh, put a pause. How far is the St. James police station from the St. James Medical Center?
As what, about 2 blocks?
How far?
Not
about
far,
2 blocks.
About a block or 2 blocks.
A block and a half.
Wendell could probably give you the exact amount of steps.
I rest my case.
I got it, Lisa.
All right, Mr. Patrick, thank you.
Cheryl, I hope you're not comparing us to. Anyway, it depends on what was said. Okay? It always depends on actually what was said. It's not just commenting on the judiciary. It's what you say and how you say it.
And when the January 6th attempted coup took place in the United States, they went through footage.
Within 48 hours, they had arrested several people already.
Because you
from all over the U.S.
accountable.
From all over the U.S.
But we live in a country where criminals are emboldened enough to go into a hospital compound, kill somebody, and drive back out.
France has a new prime minister.
And this is not the only hospital where killing has a in general it happened.
Yeah.
We mentioned that earlier.
You drive in, kill, and drive back out.
Yeah. And
disappear because we are a small continent. So you could just disappear. Yeah, break.
I believe it was yesterday in Miami. There was a hit and run on a chap that was on an electric scooter. There was a police vehicle at the corner. People ran to the police vehicle, told them, well, it's a hit and run, blah, 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 blah. The police vehicle turned in the other direction and went his own merry way. That police officer was fired immediately. I'm just saying.
Remember, if you all think it's an issue in hospitals, remember there was years ago a woman was being chased and she drove into a police station in the West and they drove in behind and shot her.
Yeah.
Criminals don't really care in this country, which is right.
They have no sense of fear. They know they're not going to get caught. Good morning.
I see one of our
morning.
Arima Hospital.
Dr. Paul, you alluded to this a couple of minutes ago of the day. How close is the St. James police station? But you don't respond from a police station. You respond from patrols. You don't say, but okay, from the station, they will respond. Unless it's something very drastic, you're trying to leave the station, but you really have to have those people on patrol. That's the one to respond to emergencies. What I'm speaking about out here. But if you can't wait for them to come from a police station and they go upon the boots or upon the clothes, whatever, or get a car and all that. So the fastest response is people already patrolling. Okay? It's just doing that point. And somebody said about 320,000 mass shootings in America It's just over 400 and something. I know it's still a lot, but it's over 400. Not 320,000. Okay, it's 435 or something. All right, gentlemen. Have a great day.
Thank you. Maybe
Thanks,
they
big guy.
maybe they meant 320. I don't know.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
We are fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Richard, I just love how you think. I love your mindset. I love how you adapt to concepts and, your brain is wonderful.
Oh my goodness.
I wish more people could be like you. But we have to have some of you and some of the others. This is, I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Couple things. I don't think putting money more money in your schools will help. You'll have a serious problem. It's a lot of problems you'll have in regards to how, your contracts and everything. So it's not going to help. I don't understand how the people who you'll put in office do not take pride in their work. I will never, if I hire someone, you better take pride in what I hire because I take pride. And I'm not going to accept mediocre, less than. I have a standard. I don't understand the people who we put in office in regards to the vision. I don't understand why we can't just pass the baton like a relay. When we go into from different office to office. I don't say they are in power because nobody's in power. I have the power. They are in office, and there's no passing of the baton. I don't get it. Healthcare, national security, and school and infrastructure, very important. In regards to, because you know what happened here in Georgia yesterday. I'm a licensed carrier. I'm a proud gun holder, and guns are not the problem. People are the problem, right? We have a lot of issues. We have people who do not have emotional intelligence, mental health, different things that happen. And I don't think everybody should have a gun here, but there's a lot going on in Trinidad. But it will never make me stop coming to Trinidad. I come home 3 times a year, sometimes more. People always ask me, why you go home? It's okay. Hello, that is home. My navel string is buried there. And I will proudly carry Trinidad and Tobago on my back every and anywhere, and I will always represent Trinidad in the most positive way because I believe in Trinidad. I envision a future in Trinidad that will be amazing. We just have poor governance right now, and I just hope it gets better in regards to where we could be as a country and as a people. Our people need to be a little more. We need to understand worldly affairs and different things. We need research. Research the gentleman from El Salvador and how he curbed crime. Whether people might say he might be a dictator, but the things he did, I love him in first time in a century to be re-elected. Nothing like that never happened in El Salvador in over 100 years. Right? So they research and understand what's going on in the world. I'm not saying you have to take everything, but some things could help us be a better place. And as elders, we need to do a little better. With this, everybody talk on emotions and stuff, but we need to educate our kids. We need to be, better, have better homes. There's too many broken homes, too many broken. The mentality of people is poor, but I hope for the best. So, Richard, you continue. I really enjoy listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All righty. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
That last caller there, she don't know that's why Richard is such a great actor. She really don't know Richard. You understand? That's what makes him so great in what he does. Good morning. Mi amor, you left just kind of abrupt yesterday, huh?
I know you now come back and settling in.
Listen to me. I want to play devil's advocate this morning. if you were police and you rush down, break your neck, and you hold somebody for murder, you know, quick time they get in, and if you have the money or property that you could get bail, you know, you're getting bail. I think half of that must be the motivating the police.
You know the law changed, right?
We have to watch all sides of the coin here, you know.
You know the law changed, right?
It changed to what?
You know the bail law was amended a couple of months ago, right? You know that, right?
To say what?
Do your research.
People are getting bail for murder.
Go and read the updated law now.
Now, up to, listen, this the last person that two lawyers got bail for.
Go and read the updated law now.
I agree with you, but I know what's going on in this country, and I've seen it happening. I'm reading it every day, so that once you have money or property that you could bail yourself, or somebody could stand bail and you have the property to suit, you're getting bail for murder. So until they stop that nonsense and run into Privy Council to get law for this and law for that, and we have a law in the books, leave it there. The people not to get bail for murder. So who running them down because you're holding them today and tomorrow? All of them, they ain't going to jail fast enough and they ain't getting the kind of sentence they're supposed to get. Even for the robbery with aggravation and all that. Police hold you, go to court, I see some kind of sentence in there, just get vexed. Because they coming out pretty soon to go and do the same thing again. Or while you get bail, you're out there looking to get your bail money and you to pay lawyer fee. So maybe that is why the police and them must be not motivated enough. So it's not one hand clapping, it's two.
Yes, Madam Attorney General.
I'll go on. Bye.
Morning,
right. Everybody.
Morning. 222-8255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. All right, that number is directly into our studio.
I see that there's a redevelopment planned for Torbay in Tobago that's causing some eruption with the yeah, there is a redevelopment plan. And the vendors are kicking up a fuss. But the THA Secretary of Tourism, Tashia Burris, has said one of the major reasons behind the proposed redevelopment of the Torbay beach facility is to make the area more family friendly. In an interview on the Tobago Updates morning show, Burris said the THA has received reports of lawlessness taking place at the facility. She said on assuming office in December 2021, she visited the sites and attractions that fall under the Division 1, being the Torbay Beach facility. She said she was given a tour, spoke with vendors there, and so I was even briefed on the current touting situation. The consensus that I got from the horse's mouth, which is the people who use the facility on a daily basis, is that Torbay has been neglected for a number of years and it is long overdue for an upgrade.
I don't think the contention is the upgrade, you know. The contention is the assertions by some, which I cannot confirm, that it is being put primarily into the hands of private developers who will then charge people to come in. I don't know if that's true, and or remove existing vendors from their booths and put in others. That's some of the assertions being touted around. I don't know if it's true or not. It's not about the upgrade. Nobody will be vexed with upgrade.
Well, she's not.
Is what coming after the upgrade, or what is alleged to be proposed to come after the upgrade.
Well, she's not indicating anything like that, at least in this article.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I'm basically responding to this crime situation and looking at a suggestion that came from the last foreign caller, a lady. She mentioned El Salvador. Now, when things like that come to the table, I like to look at it and ask the question, how practical is that kind of action to be implemented in Trinidad and Tobago? And I was listening to Richard, who is a member of the legal fraternity, and Paul, who is a senator, a legislator, and I didn't hear a response from them, but I find when I juxtapose our society, a litigious society, familiar with all these human rights practices, and as the last caller mentioned, murderers even get bail in Trinidad and Tobago. How do we go from a society as we are now, a situation where like El Salvador, where the authorities could pick up a whole family without a warrant and even imprison them without evidence, just on the basis of, well, this family is supposed to be associated with, say, drug trafficking. You know, I don't know how we're going from our situation to a more strict situation, or a situation in which the police acting in a more firm.
You mean a situation where people's rights are abridged significantly?
Yeah, because that's what's taking place in El Salvador. No, they might have
that's what we're talking about.
You know,
unless it's your family.
From my perspective, it's not pragmatic. How do we go there? We can talk about it, but in a society like ours, where if you look back before Gary Griffith became the commissioner, there was a sort of epidemic of members of the public intervening when the police were attempting to arrest somebody. That was normal then, where the police will be intimidated by members of the community. I don't see how we could go from where we are to even half the way towards El Salvador. You know, so to me, that's a no-no then. And we need to look at more, what should I say?
People always tend to think erroneously you can just transpose what happens in one legislative jurisdiction that is markedly different to our jurisdiction, when their jurisprudence and their legal framework may be totally different.
Yeah, well, that as you said that, I could go off the phone now, because that is the point I wanted to make, which seemed to go over the head of many commentators.
But forget law and order. Do what you have to do. Apparently, there's some perspective. Forget the law and forget people's rights and do what you have to do. And I'm not saying because somebody go jump out on the charges now, but what about the rights of the victims? Absolutely, you're correct.
Yeah, I hear you. Have a good day, gentlemen.
All right, buddy. All the best here.
President Bukele, I think it's his name, President Bukele in El Salvador, will have the latitude, I guess, to do what he's doing. And I know some of what he does too is that I think what he did too, in terms of dealing with gangs, because it's a gang problem. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's a gang problem a lot of the times in South America and Central America and in the Caribbean, which has led to where we are today. What President Bukele did in El Salvador, of course, part of what he did, which is very draconian on a certain level, is when gang members were incarcerated, usually they separate gangs. He said, no, mix them all up. Does not care, mix them all up. So it became, he transferred it from off the street
outside the inside system. And in other words, quote unquote, let them kill him on the inside you.
In a kind of way. But I mean, but he has, of course, yeah, there is a limiting of people's rights that's taking place in El Salvador. And of course, I'm a civil libertarian. I'm about your civil rights matter. But the voters in El Salvador keep putting him back. And he's the most popular, one of the most popular, if not the most popular leader in the South American continent. Yeah? South/Central American continent. He's one of the most popular leaders because of what he has accomplished. But what he's
because of people's
has come at a cost. And a lot of it is because people are tired of the fear.
All over the world.
But you can't let fear, even though as Paul, as you rightly said, that may be able to work in El Salvador. But Trinidad is a more complicated society. And certainly from a constitutional point of view, you will be restrained from doing things like that. So you have to find your own methodology
and your own equation
deal with your situation in your space. And to me, one of the main strategies that has to be utilized is you have to make it as uncomfortable as possible for international transactional crime to take place on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago. In addition to which, the issue of making drug trafficking as difficult as possible so that Trinidad and Tobago no longer becomes a comfortable space.
And Richard, I would add to that, part of doing that, which I have not seen the authorities for several decades in this country do, is go after the white-collar criminals who are the main perpetrators of the importation of drugs and guns in the transshipment debacle as fervently as they go after the little black boys in the streets, which they should do. I have no problem with that. But somehow, there are untouchables in this country, and I've said it over and over, and we know it is true. So all we are doing is focus primarily, not all we're doing, primarily what is happening is a focus because they're the ones who are causing the mayhem on the streets, and we understand that. But they are replaceable at the tune of 300 and 400 a year, while the main importers of the transatlantic, of the transshipment trade go primarily unscathed in this country because they're untouchable. Because they can bring whatever container they want, pass it through, and it is not a problem with whatever in it. And even the few that they identify have drugs and guns, who gets held?
And that's my point, Paul, in that until we make this an uncomfortable space.
But it's real comfortable for some people in this country. Real comfortable.
Extremely comfortable.
For transactional crime.
It is very comfortable for some people.
Whether it be in funds or money or in product, the problem continues. But you have to make it as difficult as possible to say, well, not here.
Good morning, caller.
Happening.
Yeah, good morning again. Richard and Steve Khan, Ragoobarsingh.
Yeah.
This I was in the news now. Joe Biden's son had to face the jury now for the crime he committed. That the president's son, right? That the president's son. In Trinidad and Tobago, that people want to have big money, you can't touch that boy. They'll frustrate the system. Oh, you know that? Richard Ragoobarsingh, you know that? Big money talk. You understand? So in the end of the day, the guy in El Salvador, up in the Philippines, in certain part of the world, they know human rights. Man said in my country, and I control in my country. You understand?
So are you suggesting, Mr. Patrick, that we do away with human rights? That's what you're suggesting?
They do have human rights. I'm sure El Salvador is party to the Organization of American States. So they would be...
but they're for business with American States. Them doing what they have to do. Why? They're desperate. They're desperate. The man said, listen, no gang running through my country. You understand? In Trinidad now, we have a gang, 400 or 500 gang.
We don't even know.
In a country like this?
We don't even know.
So
the agency that used to tell us that was compromised. So we don't know.
And you have a big gang in the parliament too. So when you have money, it has some cases in Trinidad and Tobago. They frustrate the system. Money talk all you. My God.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning, fellas.
Morning.
Yeah, well, Chissity was saying money talks, and I think, no, money doesn't talk. We allow money to talk. Or, we allow it because we allow the big money to influence our behavior because, okay, greed, whatever. But if we, and I think the bully any money man has been given the route. You know, the bully gets away with everything. That's the man working class, middle class, who grab the land, who take this, who's squatting, who doing anything, the vendor. Everybody gets away with something. Going into do a job with the NCC, all the material in the storeroom gone. The supervisor say, yeah, no, who take that? Does everybody take it? Gravel, sand, wheelbarrow, shovel, bricks, cement, all gone. Nothing, no consequences, everything gone, taken by the workers and people to build their houses and everything. Local government, everything down in a community to fix the stadium, sand, gravel, the community, take the gravel, gone with it. People getting food assistance things, they don't need it because of political patronage. You're getting the roof grant, the roof grant, but they fix their roof long time, but they get the sand, the gravel, everything, they sell it off to different. Everything in Trinidad and Tobago has allowed a criminal kind of psychosis behavioral pattern to happen, where it's a privilege and an entitlement to take and be free and do whatever without any consequence. And you see that from top to bottom in how when you talk to businessmen, when they expand their business, they just no problem. A lot of the things, urban planning, just rampant, people taking land. I have architect friends and fans encroach into Port of Spain, take a man 2 feet, cost them millions of, well, cost them a lot of money to redesign the whole footing and all kind of things. Everybody just does everything, just doing anything they want to without any holding responsibility.
Yeah. Consequences. That's what it is. No consequence.
Yeah. Well, no timely consequence. And consequence for some.
Sometimes some have nothing to do with it, Paul.
Animal farm. Some animals are more equal than others in this country.
Yeah.
Have always been, seemingly. I don't know, like it will never end. There's some animals who are clearly more equal than others. As I told a friend of mine last week, she was saying that her son did very, very well, and and they're so proud of him because he got into his first choice. I said, he had to work, and she said, yeah, work his tail off. I said, some people don't have to work. They will end up in that principal 20%, no matter how much they work or not. And when they finish that stage, they will get into something else, no matter how much they work. And they will get advantages in the society that no one else has, no matter how much they work on it.
Yeah.
Every creed and race finds an equal place.
I should tell you, gentlemen, Lotto is now $14 million.
You all have a wonderful day.
I suppose what you're talking about, Paul, there's privilege. Anyway, but I think what you're talking about, there's privilege. And
it's not even privilege. It's not even privilege alone, It is obscene marginalization. It is not only privilege alone. Privilege, I understand the privilege thing. You come from a family who work all their life and they have money to get you through life. And I can't begrudge anybody's family who work for decades and generations and give them an advantage in life. You understand? Everybody's working hard to try to give their offspring or their family an advantage in life. It is obscene marginalization I have an issue with. You all have a great day. Be safe out there.
All right, so just reminding you, of course, the theater is on this weekend. Lotto Madness is on this weekend, Saturday at 8:30, Sunday at 6:30 p.m. at Queen's Hall in Port of Spain. It's our final 2 shows in Port of Spain. We have one other show after that in San Fernando. So our last 2 shows in Port of Spain at Queen's Hall, Saturday and Sunday this weekend. The box office at Queen's Hall opens from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily. Tickets are also available at Electronics Arima, Jabali Rawe, Tunapuna, Anthony's Florals, Ballpark Shopping Plaza, Champlain Auto Services, and K-Squared Fashions, West Mall, East Gates, and Brentwood Mall in Chagonas. You can also purchase tickets online. Check RSRR Productions theater page on social media. Have a fantastic Thursday. The weekend begins tonight, people, on the second half of midnight. And remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health. So don't you forget it.
All right. Thank you, Richie Rich. Let's get into 8 o'clock news brief.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is time for your 8 o'clock update. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. Good morning. For the second time this year, gunmen disregarded the sanctity of a medical institution and murdered someone on the compound. The latest killing took place at 10:30 a.m. yesterday when two men approached St. James Medical Complex worker Jamal Watts and one of them shot him. Reports say that Watts, a daily paid worker from Bel Air Road, Belmont, was cutting grass on a field at the back of the complex when the incident happened. The men reportedly drove into the compound, parked, came out, and looked at Watts for some time before approaching him. One of the men and Watts had a brief scuffle before he was shot. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has won a defamation lawsuit brought against him by Oropouche East MP Dr. Rudal Munilal. Justice Carol Gobin made the ruling in a written judgment delivered yesterday. The case stems from an article in the Express newspaper on January 6, 2020, under the headline Rowley versus Waith Text Exchange. Express editor-in-chief Omati Lida was also listed as a defendant. The newspaper had printed an alleged exchange of text messages between Dr. Rowley and Fixin' TNT leader Kirk Waith. The Urban Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago has confirmed its secured possession of state lands in order to commence the construction of Phase 2 of the Diego Martin Sporting Complex. On Tuesday, a video on social media platforms showed several police officers on the outskirts of a vegetable garden in Bagatelle. An unidentified person in the video claimed the land had been occupied for more than 50 years by farmers and that the move was unfair. However, Udicott explained the area where construction is set to begin had been occupied by 3 illegal occupants who were engaged in agricultural production of short crops. And president of non-governmental group Arrive Alive, Sharon Inglefield, says vigilance from drivers, pedestrians, motorcyclists, and cyclists continues to be a key factor which can help reduce fatalities on the nation's roadways. There have been 74 road deaths for the year so far. 24,000 tickets were issued by police last year. Well, that was your update to 8 o'clock. Look out for news in full at 12 noon.
Legislation sets the tone for how we treat each other as a society. It provides those boundaries and the expectations, and it also upholds the rights of all of the citizens.
Legislation is important for everyone in society as it sets.
That's what is online.
All right, gentlemen, it is 35 minutes after the hour is 7 o'clock. On the line, I do have Mr. Derek Chin. Good morning to you, Mr. Chin.
Good morning.
Morning, of course.
Hi.
Welcome to the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Of course, we have Richard Ragoobarsingh, Wendell, Stephen, and of course, Paul Richard with me this morning.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for taking the call. I know you're very busy, so let's get straight into it.
Good morning, Mr. Chen. Thanks for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show this morning. And
Thank
of
you.
course,
Well, I was away for a while. I only came back in early yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you haven't heard from me. Because, I obviously, I know you're calling me about the issue with MovieTowne and the port. So
yes.
This is my first opportunity to actually say anything publicly,
All right. Well, thank you.
Wonderful.
All right. Go ahead, guys.
So is the issue at this point resolved to some degree? I know that MovieTowne would have paid the $3 million by the deadline that was indicated by the court, which I think was the 28th of August. What is the current status?
Well, as you know, let's go back to the idea of re-entering MovieTowne, which, as the attorneys and you'll see, nothing has closed down. That re-entry was considered very illegal, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But as it stands right now, MovieTowne continues to operate as normal. We are still the owners and the landlords. The tactics of the port have been all about bullying and taking advantage of a situation that they know very well that has been going on as late as of July this year. So if you're in matters in the court, and the matters have been in discussion and correspondence is going on a week-to-week basis in recent times, then you don't just all of a sudden re-enter and talk about taking over and determining leases. As it stands right now, we got an injunction where the $3 million was placed as part of our arrangement with the judge. The judge said that the court cannot contact or be in contact with any of our tenants, right? I think you're all aware of that. And the tenants were told they have to deal with us, meaning MovieTowne. And secondly, that they have to not interfere with the operations of MovieTowne to prevent anything from happening and so on and so forth. Well, they continue to defy that and break the law. And I'm meeting actually today with the police to say, listen, I have an order here, which is an order from Justice Honeywell. And basically all the requirements, whether it's the $3 million payment in advance as part of our arrangement, but the other parts, meaning occupying the premises and preventing my officers and my staff from being able to do and conduct business, is a contravention of this particular order. And why it is that they can continue illegally. I mean, I think an order is a law. So that is one of the big issues. I'm asking the police to intervene and ask them to not to block the use of our offices. They've now said, okay, you can open from 8 to 4. But MovieTowne is a 24-hour, 7-day business. It doesn't close. We have movies that go out till 11 o'clock. We have events that take place at the banquet center. We have weddings. And they are still occupying and preventing based on that injunction. So that's my biggest issue to deal with today, to ask the police if they could intervene and tell the court that they are acting illegally and they're contravening the order by Justice Honeywell.
But Mr. Chin,
just concern, yes.
Yeah. What would have caused this action in the first place? Because this surely wasn't an overnight thing. Was there some sort of negotiations taking place prior to bring it to that action?
Very good question, very good observation. When you deal with the port, when you write a letter, you have to wait about 4 months to get a response. So when they talk about it taking so long, we have been trying to organize and pay off whatever arrears there have been. But one of the problems with this 5-year renewal process is that they have to get a valuation. And just after COVID, we got a valuation and we paid. We said we agreed to the valuation done by Farrell. Only to find out, because of COVID, and when we started to look at the numbers and try to make things tight, because obviously we were closed for business and so on, we realized that the Farrell report was flawed, that it's not based it on raw land, which is what we are renting from the port, but they put all the buildings, like if they built the buildings, into the valuation so that the cost per square foot now skyrocketed. And we said, gentlemen, we are willing to pay on the raw land as stipulated in the lease, right? You have not done so. And therefore, this valuation is flawed, so we cannot accept it. We need to get other valuations and come up with what would be a realistic valuation on the raw land that we are leasing from you. They continue to deny that, and in contravention of the lease, and I'm not talking about me making this up, in contravention of the lease, they continue to put a higher valuation than should be because of adding in the buildings that were built by MovieTowne and nothing to do with any investment from the port. And therefore, the rate became very high, which we would have to pass on to the tenants, and the tenants can't pay because that would show their rents probably about 40 to 50% higher. Even today, they can't pay the lower rent that we had from before. So that was one of the issues. Then we went into the negotiation, trying to come to some sort of settlement. We did so as of July of this year, when I met with the chairman, Mr. Alexander, on his invitation. I met with my team, and my team. And we said, okay, we will agree to pay the undisputed amount, which is, they claim is $10 million, but we said, no, it's not, because of that flawed valuation. And we made an offer of $6 million. Even if you look at $10 million as accepted amount, we offered them $6 million, and to keep the rate as is until we go to the court and finalize if the valuation is flawed or not. right? This is of July of this year. Then they said out of a handshake and agreement and three hours of meetings and having a lunch and everything else, we shook hands and we left. We've provided the draft with the offer of the $6 million and to keep the rate at $194,000 per month, right? Which is what we've been paying. This is even without the concessions for COVID. So the next 2 or 3 days, strange enough, they responded, which is very out of no ordinary. I tell you, they usually respond 3 to 4 months after. They rejected it. I said, but no reason. We just rejected it. I said, well, I mean, we were very taken surprised because we felt that was a very generous offer in settling this matter. Then they said, okay, we want to go to arbitration. I said, okay, we will go to arbitration. We selected a gentleman named Justice Mandonza. Within 3 days, we had to wait for him to respond. And they said, oh, you haven't responded. We have Justice Stolmeyer, but why have you responded? I said, it's only 3 days. You have to give the man a chance to say yes or no, which he did, and we have that in writing. Then on July the 22nd, right, they came back and said, okay, we decided not to go the arbitration route as stipulated in the lease and matters like this. We will go to the High Court, which we had also recommended that arbitration takes a long time and it also is a little more costly. So they came back and said, okay, well, we agree with your suggestion of going to the court, and we have that detailed and in writing. On July the 22nd, they came back and said, okay, they will go to the court. On July the 23rd, they entered MovieTowne. Not even a day. They entered MovieTowne and said, we want to determine the lease and we want to, use the re-entry process, which is again against the law. The law and the courts don't take that kindly because we are in the middle of discussions, middle of settlements, and you have re-entry is usually the last resort, right? And that is what has happened to date.
Mr. Chen, good morning. How much had this affected business on that weekend of the 23rd, and has business still been impacted by that?
Well, I would say, we are coming into the last week before school, so it's still holding. I mean, the place is still very busy. I would say that people don't really understand all that went on. They see these numbers and these things in the papers. But the most damaging thing to us is our reputation. Because I have spent my lifetime building this place from 22 years and trying to create an environment that is positive, unlike the rest of the country, right? So I would say it's embarrassing to me. As I said, I wasn't here at the time. It's embarrassing to MovieTowne that has created one of the bright beacons of this country's development. And instead of sitting down and trying to help and build something that is very good, all we get is attacks one on top of each other.
One of the other issues that arose, Mr. Chin, even before this, because we spoke to you during the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, and you would have indicated that the MovieTowne management had a serious challenge financially, as many other businesses. But recently, even before this, we would have seen in the newspapers yourself, the MovieTowne complex having owed the state $93 million. Is that accurate?
Right. No. We have already filed our objections. We have negotiated with the BIA, who has helped us in a way to start to make payments towards or some sort of settlement schedule, which we have done. But we have obviously the 93 million, of which 60-something million is the interest alone. The amount is more, and the amount has to be contested, which we have shown them. Yes, we were guilty in terms of not filing our returns, but we're talking about a period of 20 years at least. My biggest issue was the fact that when I built or was about to build MovieTowne, I got concessions in taxes. I got a 7-day reduction in tax, 50% off the annual rate under the Tourism Act of 2000, right? When I claimed and submitted those returns, I submitted it at 17%. It was half of 34%. What happened then was they did not accept it because they didn't have the sort of relationship with the tourism board that these things weren't put into order from the tourism side, although I have it in writing. So when I submitted 17%, they rejected it. I said, well, until you all get your act together with left hand and right hand on the same page, I'm not sending in any returns. Why must I pay 50% more of a concession I got to build MovieTowne.
But put a pause. What you just clarified a lot there. You said that of the 93 million, 60 million was interest, which means there was like $30 million owed or so in taxes. How long does that represent in taxes not being paid out of MovieTowne's 21-year history?
Oh, what I told you that when you compound the outstanding amount, it 60-something million, of the 90 million was what was interest and penalty, right? So we were guilty of not paying anything because of what I just mentioned. Of course, when you went on to the latter years and so on and so forth, we realized due to whatever, I never knew that my accountants didn't pay the tax returns. I said, well, you all are guilty of that, and we accepted that. So we went back down and negotiated with the BIR a payment schedule, and then also started to put in the objections. If we don't mind paying the taxes, we want to pay the correct taxes. And that's where we are at the moment.
How do you respond to persons who say, because a lot of persons have responded to that, and you're explaining a lot this morning, thank you for that there were objections. But when you say, well, my accountants weren't paying the taxes, and you have a 21-year history, even with the machinations you identified, persons are saying, well, you're expanded in Guyana, you're expanding into other areas of Trinidad and Tobago, but your accountants are not paying the taxes. Doesn't sound like proper business practice.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, those accountants are no longer with us many years ago, so the work to get clearing up all this matter took time. But there is an issue where the corporate tax part of it was, we were delinquent, and I admitted that. So we went back and apologized and said, listen, this happened and that happened, but let us get together and sort it out and start to do exactly that. They said they're not interested in closing down MovieTowne or anything like that, but obviously they would like corporations to pay their taxes. And I said, I agree. I mean, I'm embarrassed by the fact that the people I had given that job to do didn't do it. And we had to go back and find and search over the 20 years, go into all the archives and start to find returns that were prepared but never submitted. So it was sort of something that we've dealt with and we are continuing to deal with. And hopefully we can come to some sort of restitution and solve this problem. So it's a matter that happened, and we obviously were embarrassed about it.
Yeah, Mr. Chin, I think it takes a big man, and I respect you for that, for at least admitting this morning that you were wrong, you all were wrong, and you all are making amends to correct it. But how do you see the future of MovieTowne? Because I mean, let's face it, MovieTowne is a gem. You've done wonderful work down there, right? A lot of people enjoy the facility and so on. How do you see the rebuilding of that relationship with the authorities and moving forward in what you plan to do down there?
Well, thank you very much. And yes, I'm glad I have gotten some sort of appreciation. But I think the people of Trinidad and Tobago recognize what it was. We took a place that was really swampy underwater, and nobody wanted it. And the first piece of land that we got negotiated then with the previous chairman was the land that is now the Spectrum, which was already concreted, or what you call asphalted, and a flat land, and they were having parties and all sorts of things under Mr. Monroe. We had negotiated that, and at the last minute they said, "Oh, we don't think we want to do it anymore. It's the only piece of land we have west of the port," and they reneged. So what was left was this swampy little area, right? Which was, as I said, nobody was interested in it. It was part of the reclamation process. All the debris and stuff was passed on there, and then the water from the stadium was sort of drained into that. And as I said, it was not a very nice place. So that was all I had. And I said, well, boy, having negotiated for the Spectrum and spent money and tried to buy out the previous people, Mr. Monroe and so on, what do I get? They said all they have left is 6 years, and no bank would lend me any money to build any MovieTowne with only 6 years left on that existing lease. So Mr. Isaac McLeod, who's the then chairman, a very nice guy, and he understood and he saw my pain. He said, Derek, all I could offer you is that piece we have, which is where you are now. It's 10 acres, but as is. All I could give you, because the board says, well, they want to hold on to now the Spectrum. Well, you see what the Spectrum is still to this day. It's a big car park. There's no money, nothing on it. right? And what we have done 20 years after is MovieTowne next door to it. You all compare the two, right? What is the value of that land? Well, it still has never earned any money for anybody or the government for that matter. But MovieTowne has been paying millions and millions of dollars. I'm trying to calculate how much money I've paid over the 22 years to the port, right? And then they come and say, well, we owe them 10 million. I'm sure we must have paid over $100 million already over the 22 years. And they talk about $10 million, which is
well, as you said, I mean, they acted, and unfortunately, it ended up in a public spat. No one can discount them. I think I endorse what Wendell has said is that I think no one can deny that the investment of time and your effort and energy and your team in developing that area has added tremendously to the life of Trinidad and Tobago. Were you surprised when the issue of your tax arrears became public?
Yes, I was, because we never really was brought up. We were so busy running and dealing with MovieTowne because it's growing and all the pressures and stuff of that, as I said, was an oversight that I was very embarrassed about. Is that how could this happen? I mean, I didn't even consider. I'm not a person that deals with the taxes side, and the accountants would do their job, come to the board, present the financials, but they never brought up the issue that we are in arrears for tax. And then again, the acknowledgement from the BIR was something that I never saw.
That sounds strange from a company perspective. Accountants in company environments present audited financials on a regular basis, in many cases in companies on an annual basis. So to hear that a board of directors or a team of managers is not looking at financials and asking questions about tax liabilities, ongoing concerns, profit and loss is very strange to hear from an operation of that size. That sounds very strange to me. And I'm sure people listening, it sounds very strange to them in terms of governance of an organization of that size.
Okay, a lot of the years going through, I think one of the councils felt that there was a big serious problem because there were a lot of years that were lost years, especially during the COVID era, which is more recent times. But you're right. I mean, I said, but how come I never saw an assessment? How come I never saw? And there were times when MovieTowne was very, very financially in trouble. And that's why my accountants didn't want to bring the true picture. But we did have monthly meetings. And as I said, I was surprised that we never really tackled the annual return situation. I mean, all the VAT and everything have been paid, that's the things that we deal with on PAYs and so on. That's all up to date. But in terms of the actual financials, meaning the annual return, was where I think we were delinquent, And that is, as I said, the time to go back now and deal with it is what took time, because it's a long time. We're talking from 2004 onwards, And again, the issue about not having getting the concession was also a reason why those returns didn't come in, and things just went on. And and we reached a stage when we were told by the board that, listen, you fellas have this kind of money owed to us, and of course we didn't say, well, too bad. We started to hire new people and bring in. You can see if you want to check what are accounting firms now to try and clean up the act, and that's where we are.
Now, given these two sets of liabilities that we know about, what is the future of MovieTowne? Do you think it's still a viable concern going forward? It's a lot of investment placed in that environment.
Yeah, well, MovieTowne, I mean, if you put a valuation in it in terms of, if I was to sell it, it's certainly not going to be for $10 million. All right? And if you're talking, I'd say it's not 90 million, it's more like, I just say 20 million. The MovieTowne is, I think, worth a lot more than that. And we continue to develop, that is something that we'll manage, we'll deal with our banks and so on. And the business is, I think, a viable one if it's, now that we've got through the COVID era, which, you don't just take COVID lightly. People say COVID was 4 years ago, whatever. COVID between 2020 to 2023 had a tremendous impact on many of our business, specifically ours. We're in the entertainment business, and that was the one that got the most hits in terms of all the restrictions, So we had to shut down some of the businesses. Tenants could not afford to pay, so we had to give them a lot of leeway, and so on and so forth. So we are only seeing 2022 into 23 a recovery process, And thank God we've got some better movies, and we are working to keep our costs down and continue to think positively. You know, it's something that I would say is my legacy, and I'm not going to see it just be destroyed, just like what the perception is with all the embarrassment and so on.
Mr. Chen?
So, we've expanded into Guyana because of the Streets of the World issue, where the lands behind us was not granted, and we had to find alternative sources to invest and to continue to grow. And Guyana, we've changed the same way we've changed the landscape in Trinidad, but with entertainment and places like that. We've done the same thing in Guyana, you know, and it's doing pretty well over there now.
Mr. Chen, just for clarity, with the decision of Justice Honeywell, who left it up to the tenants to decide who they must pay, has that been rectified? Has that situation been rectified?
Well, as I said, the port continues to not breach the requirements in that order. And the tenants have been told you are not to deal with the port, and same way the port has been told you're not to deal with the tenants, no contact, no communication, and all rents are to be paid to the landlord, meaning Trinidad, all right? What they also have been told not to do, and which they're continuing to breach it, is to interfere with the activities and the operations of MovieTowne. They're telling me I can't come into my office. Or now they're now change it back to, okay, come at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 4. I said, but MovieTowne runs right through the night. We have weddings, we have conferences, we have people who have made bookings a year ago. I mean, what are you trying to do? And they're continuing to occupy the offices and not allow my staff the freedom to do what they have to do. So today I'm meeting with the police to ask them, well, here, what is good? You get an order and it's not being taken seriously.
So you're saying the port is still occupying your offices at Innovators Bay?
Yes, yes. And this is what I have now returned. And I said, I'm going to deal with it because you are in breach of the order given by Justice Honeywell, who didn't want to vary and say, well, these are what...
They're occupying your offices and doing what exactly?
Just sit down with guards outside and telling us, well, you have to leave or you can't come in and things like that, and sleeping on our sofas in the banquet hall and preventing people from coming in to take a walk around, see if they want to book the venue. So that to me, that means...
So they're interacting with your clients and customers, potential customers?
Yeah, well, if you have bodyguards sitting down outside your door, outside your office, and then telling me I can only come into the office at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 4. And then if you don't leave, they come to throw you out. Well, I don't understand.
But isn't part of the court order, according to you, non-interference in the operations and the management of the entity?
Yeah.
What I'm not understanding, Mr. Chen, though, is that you would have attorneys, and if an order is in breach, why aren't your attorneys activating that the order is being breached and taking it back to court?
Well, this is exactly, they tried to go back to court on Saturday to ask Honeywell if she could make that variation to say, listen, operations mean X and Y. You cannot be doing what you're doing. But she's decided to defer to Justice Kangaloo, who is supposed to come back into the country by Friday and have the court hearing to deal with that and to deal with the substantive issues also. So this is what makes me understand, well, what is the use of this law? I mean, it's there in black and white. It's Queen's English, or King's English, and yet the court continues to defy the order. So it's in contempt, and therefore that's a criminal action. The police say, well, it's a civil matter, so they don't want to get involved. I said, but it's not a civil matter. You have to, the order is the law, and you have to follow the law. So as I said, I'm meeting with them at 10 o'clock this morning.
Well, we hope to get an update tomorrow. Mr. Chen, thank you for taking time to talk to us this morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Alexander. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Can you give us, as we start, an update on the impasse between Posinco and the MovieTowne management, please?
As it stands, because of
a breach of a lease that existed between the Port Authority and TCDC. The port was forced to re-enter the property. And since then, the TCDC understandably has gone to court with an injunction against the port. And we are awaiting the determination of the court at the moment.
When you said re-enter, what do you mean? Subsequent to the July 1st entry of into the complex?
I'm sorry, let me hear that question again.
You said you were forced to re-enter the compound. What does that mean? Subsequent to the first entry in July?
No. I'm trying to use the legal terms here as I understand them. And if the tenant, or if a tenant breaches a lease, the landlord has a right to re-enter the property. In other words, to evict them.
Okay, so it was your intention to go into evict? That was the intention at that point?
I'm sorry?
It was your intention to evict at that point?
When the action was taken to re-enter the property, as I said, that's a term that I understand that is used legally. That's by right because the tenant did not honor the terms of the lease. In this particular case, they did not pay the rent that was expected, and as such, the landlord then re-entered the property. In other words, went into the space and possessed the space. And took
Mr. Alexander, we spoke to Mr. Chin yesterday, representing TCDC, and he was saying that in his opinion, and let me preface it by saying that as far as MovieTowne saw it, the Port of Spain Port, the Port Authority, was in breach of the current order of the court by not allowing them unrestricted access to certain parts of the MovieTowne infrastructure, specifically, of course, their offices and stuff like that. And they were restricting them between 8 to 4 at this point, and there was a certain amount of bullying in terms of how the Port Authority was handling the matter. How do you respond to that?
Well, that is not the understanding of the port. The re-entry into the property means that the landlord now has possession of the property. We cannot re-enter the property and then simply walk out and allow them to function as normal. If a re-entry takes place, it means that your operations are affected in some way. No. So having taken over those 2 locations on the property, we have to occupy that space because we took the action to re-enter.
But he's saying that the court order says that you all are not supposed to interfere, and that you all are in fact interfering by not allowing them access to the administrative offices, and that there is no court order that says that. So do you consider yourself in breach of that court order?
No, we are not. No, we are not. If you re-enter the property, you would have disrupted the operations, the current operations as they were, right? That is, I mean, understandable as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is, when we are there, having been or now being in possession or on site, there are discussions that can take place to permit you to get certain access to reasonable access to certain parts of the property, because we deliberately have no intention and do not intend to disrupt the operations at MovieTowne. All the tenants are still in place. All of the public can go in and out and continue business as usual.
I understand your point of re-entry on the basis of whatever the lease agreement is, but I'm talking specifically to the court order that was granted. Yesterday, he's saying specifically that the Port Authority was in breach of the court order. I'm not talking about your right of re-entry as a landlord, which you're claiming, which initiated the entire sequence of events. I'm talking about post it going to court, there is an interim court order, and I think the matter goes back to court sometime this week before a different judge. He is saying that the substance of that court order that interim court order is being breached by the Port Authority. I'm not talking about your right of re-entry as a landlord, which you keep coming back to. I'm talking about the court order itself. Or are you not familiar with the terms of the court order?
The Port Authority does not agree with that position of Mr. Chin.
Does Mr. Alexander, Mr. Chin indicated that there are personnel from the Port Authority in the offices itself of TDCD. Is that correct?
There are security officers on site to two specific areas related to two specific areas of MovieTowne.
Could you share those areas with us and the reason for those security officers being there?
Well, that's part of the re-entry process. The two areas were the administrative offices and secondly, the banquet spaces, because those are the two offices that were identified as related to TCDC in accordance with the terms of the lease. So the re-entry means that you occupy spaces related to the tenant. We couldn't go anywhere else. We can't lock down the entire place deal with a matter specifically related to TCDC. So those are the two areas that were identified that based on our advice, excuse me, that we were able to re-enter.
You used the term lockdown, and earlier on in the conversation, you said that you do not believe that you're impeding the business operations as per the court order. How can you use the term lockdown without having some sort of impact on the business operations of TCDC?
Well, Paul, again, I'm saying that if the law enables a landlord to re-enter a property of a tenant because of a breach in the of the agreement, that speaks to a disruption of the operation. So that's an initial position. Now, if you at the time is taken and that the plan is made to re-enter the premises, then it is not reasonable to expect that he will simply enter the property and then leave. So if the court had decided to rule that the PATT had done so illegally, or if they think that based on after determination that the PATT should move out, then we move out. But we cannot have a presence and that not have some kind of effect on the operations.
So what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the presence of the security vis-a-vis the re-entry is to maintain the interest of Posinco.
Correct.
All right, let's go back a bit. Mr. Chin also told us yesterday in the interview that there is a 5-year cycle of renegotiation of the terms and conditions of the lease. Would that be correct?
The lease permits or calls for the lease is a 5-year term, after which you can have a further extension of 5 years after a particular process is gone through.
And that process would entail, I guess, reevaluating the terms and conditions of that lease agreement as it stands at that point. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Chin indicated, yes, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the Posinco attempted to include the infrastructure invested by TDCD in the assessment process. And he thought, and I'm paraphrasing here, that was unfair because Posinco did not make that investment in the infrastructure, and so that should not be included in the assessment process. Is that an accurate depiction of what's happening presently, or do you have a different version?
No, it is not. Because the valuation, let's talk about the valuation process. According to the lease, the valuation process goes like this. Both parties agree that, look, okay, we're coming up to a new lease period and we need to negotiate on the the cost of the price of the lease, which again is also permitted by the agreement in terms of how you go about doing that. No, how does that happen? Both parties agree on a valuator. Both parties sign on that this valuator is going to do the valuation. Both parties share the cost of that valuator to do that valuation. Both parties also agree to accept the terms or the findings or the report from the valuator. In this particular case, the valuator decided what the cost was. Both parties and TCDC began to pay that lease. They paid the lease that was agreed based on the valuation. So, sometime after, and this was after COVID that was the period. Because during COVID, by the way, the PATT gave significant concessions to all our tenants, all. When the country was locked down for COVID, the PATT charged or received no rent for a period of time from tenants. It may be interesting to find out whether or not TCDC also treated its tenants the same way. So that took place for a while.
When did that happen? When did that arrangement, that suspension of the lease rental come to an end post-COVID?
Post-COVID, in 1 second, November of 21, I think, from April to November. There were various degrees of concession. When we were locked down completely, there was zero rent. Then we kind of prorated it thereafter when the country started opening and businesses started getting back into business, getting back into business.
Is that the point at which TCDC found that the arrangement should have been reviewed?
I'm sorry?
Is that the point at which, because you're saying there was a prorated approach to resuming the level of rental that would have been agreed to before COVID? Would that be correct?
Correct, yes. And for TCDC, that period ran until March 22. That consideration went until March 22. There was a series of concessions in there for rent. But,
so at what point did TCDC indicate that they were uncomfortable or in disagreement with the rental arrangement?
Just before, and don't hold me to this date in terms of time, but chronologically I'm trying to put it, let me just say this. While all these concessions were going on, that was still within the period of the lease, right? That should have been in place. So it means that, and during that time, the lease would have come. That particular lease would have been up for renewal. So we had to then start getting the new lease period taken care of, and therein, in that period, TCDC all of a sudden found out that the rent that they had paid when the valuation was determined was paid in error. Now, I will leave that as it is.
I don't understand that. How can man be paid in error? I don't understand.
If I may interrupt, Paul, sorry. Mr. Alexander, I don't know if you're connecting what you just said there to when Mr. Chen told us that one of the fundamental arguments that TCDC has with the evaluation was that they were including the buildings, which Paul referenced, and that the evaluation should simply have been for the occupation of the land. And so he indicated that, there was rethinking. Let me put it that way, my words, rethinking of TCDC paying that rental because they felt it was wrong to have included the buildings as part of the evaluation process.
Okay, so and my response to that was not Posinco's doing. That was as a result of an evaluator that was selected by both parties. Posinco didn't decide that. And also in the lease and the report of the evaluator, the report stated specifically the terms of the lease of the report that was done in the report. Sorry, they spoke specifically that the conditions under which the valuation was arrived at. All right. So Posinco doesn't get into making those decisions. Posinco will be guided by whatever the reported valuation is. Right.
So Posinco's position is that there was an agreement for a evaluator between Posinco and TDCD. The evaluator came up with a valuation. This is before COVID, and the MovieTowne was paying that. So that is the position that Posinco maintains in terms of what is the present evaluation. Now, you indicated that this cycle, the evaluation cycle, is come up again now. Is that it?
Oh yeah, we're currently in another cycle of from the year 2021 to 2026.
Has an evaluator been agreed to between both parties?
No, it has not. The most recent issue where that is concerned is that TCDC selected the evaluator. The PATT agreed to the evaluator selected by TCDC.
Mm-hmm.
TCDC is yet to put in writing or to confirm that in writing in an agreement so that the evaluator can be engaged. So,
Mr. Chino also said one of the problems in this situation is that Posinco / the port is very tardy in responding to correspondences. How do you respond to that, making this negotiation quite protracted?
Based on the information that I have and I have seen and been a party to in terms of being involved in, I cannot agree with Mr. Chin's position. I cannot.
At what point did Posinco believe that this situation deteriorated so badly that it warranted re-entry of the property, as you described it earlier?
Let me go back to this point. When as in any lease, and actually, having issues with the values and prices is not an unusual activity in terms of lease agreements. If and the lease usually, in this case, speaks to if there's any disagreement with the value, the cost that is to be determined. If there is any disagreement, the expectation is that the tenant will continue to pay what they were paying prior to this issue rearing its head until that issue is resolved.
Which is what they would have agreed to before.
Correct.
Right.
That is in the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
TCDC chose not to pay. Understand this. TCDC chose not to pay from 2021, April 2021.
Is this until July this year when the Posinco decided to take the action of re-entry?
To date.
And that is the period within which the $10 million in arrears that was published in the newspaper was accrued?
Total. That's the total for that period. Yes. No. Let me just back up. When they did not pay any rent at all, they took zero. At that stage of the game, we wrote with and they determined to advise that we will be, we more than likely will have to go to court on this matter. I would also state that I called Mr. Chin on the phone to have a without prejudice conversation, notwithstanding the fact that we had written them a letter. So I thought I'd explain to him where we were, why we were where we are, and whether we could work this thing out. Mr. Chin told me, he said, Mr. Alexander, we could pay the rent, you know. So I said, well, why aren't you paying the rent? And he said to me, he was advised by his lawyers not to. I subsequently understood what the advice was as a result that they thought this valuation was flawed. But that is what Mr. Chin told me. He said, we can pay the rent. And by this time, I mean the old rent, whatever that figure is. So our action against Mr. Chin at the moment is for not paying any rent at all. It's not about a new rate here. It's about whatever the old rent was. The law requires you to continue paying that until you resolve the issues, which we understand. We're not it's not the best position from our perspective, but we appreciate that the law permits it. Mr. Chin and the TCDC chose on their own volition not to pay the PATT any rent. That was unacceptable.
So now $3 million had been paid by the 28th of August. Would that be correct?
Some money was ordered. Well, I shouldn't say ordered. A decision was made in the court that they would pay $3 million to the court.
What does that enable? How does that impact the situation?
That's a legal part of the situation. That has no impact on us at the moment. That's part of the legal proceedings.
Right.
In other words, that money was not paid to PATT.
Is the and this is going back just from my understanding, does the agreement contemplate a per square footage cost for the lease of the compound?
There's some model that is, but in short, yes. I mean, the lease is based on the land that the port is leasing, and the land is measured in acreage.
Right. So what's next moving forward? What do you expect? Because now, as Richard said earlier, and Mr. Chin told us, and I think you confirmed that the matter goes back to a new judge later this week. What is Posinko hoping to come out of that situation?
Well, we await the determination of the court. We think we have a good case before the court, and we await the determination of the court.
And I guess the immediate issue is the arrears, minus the $3 million. Would that be correct? Is there any interest to be applied to that?
My understanding is the court will determine that.
Or if there's an interest to be applied. And then what now, given I'll use the word stalemate, of a new assessment and the agreement on a new evaluator for the situation moving forward?
Well, if at the moment, based on the re-entry law as we understand it, means that when a property is re-entered into, the lease is terminated. It means that the lease is terminated, right? Based on the outcome of so at the moment, there's no lease that exists between TCDC and the PATT.
So a new lease has to be agreed to, and terms and conditions of a new lease now has to be agreed to.
Right.
Now, I'm presuming no one wins if there's an eviction. The port doesn't win. The huge investment TDCD made doesn't win. The public doesn't win. So in the interest of all concerned, some sort of agreement has to be made for this going concern to continue. Would that not be so?
I think that's a reasonable position to adopt, yes.
Do you think, given the fact that it's now in court in a particular realm to deal with the arrears, and this court matters to deal with the arrears, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That the parties can sit down and come to some sort of agreement on an evaluator for the next cycle, or I guess the present cycle, given what you said, because that cycle ended, and some arrangement moving forward.
Well, he's not saying that there's a cycle. He's saying that the lease is now terminated, that it's a
new lease.
Completely, yes.
Right. And the thing is that the PATT has already agreed to a named valuator, all that is suggested by TCDC. So all that is required now is for TCDC to respond to the letter sent to them by PATT regarding that valuation.
So there are two matters here. One, the arrears, and two, the new assessment based on the agreed to evaluator as suggested by TCDC.
Yeah, well, hold on. Let's not combine both of these things, right?
That's just I separated them.
Yeah. Any discussion on the lease going forward, or on a lease going forward, will be determined and guided by whatever the court rules.
Yeah.
On the matter, before the court. So thereafter, any other issues can be dealt with. But to answer your question, your question earlier as well, the opportunity to negotiate, to discuss, is always available. Even courts from time to time advise and suggest that people try to negotiate and discuss issues before it being determined in the court. So that doesn't go away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully it gets to that point that there could be some level of amicability in terms of how this matter is settled. Because as Paul would have indicated, and as you would have concurred, nobody wins if it becomes more and more hostile. And not only is a substantial investment up in the air, but the amount of jobs that is facilitated by the existence of the entity. So I mean, hopefully that will eventually come to pass. That some sort of settlement will come to pass.
Let me state specifically at this stage, categorically, that there's no hostility from the side of the PATT and POSINCO. Absolutely none. We are dealing here with a strictly legal position, and that is what is being determined in the courts. We have never not agreed to have discussions on this matter, and our intent during this, even during the re-entry, one of our key concerns was ensuring that the tenants and the public will not be unreasonably affected and impacted by this re-entry process. And I think so far that we have been able to validate that.
Would you be able to confirm? I read in one newspaper, and I'm subject to your correction if it's inaccurate, that the monthly rental is $194,000.
Well, depending on the rate that you're using, it is a figure that will come up can come up from time to time. And by that I mean I don't want to say specifically, but it can be a figure that was arrived at a particular point when certain concessions may have been considered and so on.
And is it that, and I think one of the points Mr. Chin raised is that he was given certain concessions under the Tourism Act when he entered into the agreement at the start 21 years ago. How has that impacted negotiations through the years?
Paul, I'm in no position to speak about that because that is the first time I heard that is when Mr. Chin said it on the radio. I don't know anything at all about that.
So that never came up. It came to your attention before and has not been part of the...
Well, Paul, if I may intervene, I think he meant that with regard to inland revenue. I don't know.
It's inland revenue. I stand corrected. Sorry. Okay.
I don't think he meant that with regard to
this is not the rental thing. This is BIR. Yeah. Okay. All right, Mr. Alexander, is there anything you would like to add in closing that we may have omitted?
One thing I would like to say is that the PATT really regrets that we have arrived at this position after the failure to meet acceptable agreement as this thing progressed, and that we have every intention to honor our commitment to the tenants of MovieTowne and the public as a whole to ensure that business as usual, as usual can be under the circumstances, will continue at MovieTowne.
Well, as you say that, something has occurred to me. Is it that you were asking for the tenants at one point to pay the rent to you directly to PATT?
our understanding of a re-entry is that once the re-entry is made, you would now become the landlord of the facility. If you are the landlord of the facility, then the rent is supposed to be paid to you.
But the legal advice that we have received, it could be inaccurate, is that they have no agreement with you. The tenants, that is.
Well, correct. That is correct. However, the re-entry process terminates the existing lease. So the tenants have to be